Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Starts and Shits show for today. Because week 14 is already lining up to be a shit show as we speak. With injuries and whatnot, Jeff can't be with us today, but he left us a very valuable injury thread that we're going to be referencing throughout the show. With me, as always, is Calvin and Hobby, and there may be others joining as the show goes on. So make sure you tune in, get those starts and sits questions into us, and we'll do our best to answer them live on the air. We're going to go through each and every game here on the docket here from Sunday to Monday to who knows Tuesday, the way things have been working out lately, and get those questions answered for you the best we can. Without further ado, Calvin, Mike, over to you.
So I'm just sitting here thinking as you're saying this and realizing Jeff is not going to be with us today. Is it coincidence that he got his Manscaped package in and all of a sudden he's way less reliable than he used to be? I mean, last time he wasn't on time. All of a sudden tonight he can't make it. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Well, here's a funny story, because I know Jeff's not tuning in right now because he has company over. Well, you don't just get a Manscaped product and have company show up. I'm just saying things are a little fishy here right now.
Right.
But without further ado,
maybe you do. Maybe that's
here to defend himself.
To show up.
Well, if he's not here to defend himself, we definitely have full reign to pick on him, right? Is that how it works?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, I'm excited. We got our first week of playoffs for me, for most of my leagues. Are you in leagues that start in week 13 playoffs?
I had a few of them that were like that. We had a couple. Obviously, SFBX started. I had a bye last week in that. There's a very few spin-offs similar to the SFBX. The IDP Invitational with Nate Cheatham there and Seahawks Dan. They put one together for autism. I'm trying to think out. Nate also put together a World War II type feel with 32 teams kind of battling it out, or 30 teams battling it out kind of thing. Those playoffs started last week. I got eliminated there. And then a couple of the larger best ball ones that I'm in started last week. So that did not go well for me.
Yeah. None of the leagues that I'm in, week 13 kicks the playoff off. It's all week 14 for me. So I got quite a few matchups. And in fact, when we get into some of those games, I want to ask you a couple of start and sit questions of my own. So anybody who's watching this now, if you have any of those questions, make sure you put those in the chat. But also, I just think if you have just general questions for Matt or for me, but especially for Matt, any of those questions, let's get those in there too. Let's turn this into a bit of a ask me anything.
Well, my life's pretty much an open book here right now. And, from what some of the things we've done with eating dog food to makeup to getting my chest waxed, I'm a pretty open book here. So I'm not too afraid to do something stupid. And our first question comes in from Clayton here. Why are people fading Aaron Jones this week? Well, if we look at that matchup with the Packers, and I honestly would not be fading him. He's playing Detroit. It seems kind of fishy that people would be fading him right now. To my knowledge, looking at Jeff's information, there's no injury that we're looking at right now. Last week, Aaron Jones maybe did not perform up to what we had hoped he would, because it was the Devontae Adams show with Aaron Rodgers last week. They connected a couple times there in the end zone, taking away a little of that shine on Aaron Jones. But I think this week you can fire up Aaron Jones for your playoffs and be happy with that.
Well, I think last week was the week Aaron Jones had that big run at the end, right? I mean, he actually was pretty good. I think he was maybe even the RB3 last week. I mean, I don't know. I definitely am not in a place where I'm interested in fading Aaron Jones. He's got a tremendous fantasy playoff schedule right here. I think over the next 3 weeks, he'll be really important to a lot of championship teams. So, yeah, I am certainly not one of those people that's fading Aaron Jones. Now, dynasty-wise, maybe that's what we're talking about. And I think the reason, if anybody is fading him for dynasty long-term, it's because of his contract situation. At this point, I don't believe he has signed at all for next year. Is that right, Matt?
He is a free agent at the end of the year right now as it stands, but I really think the Packers are going to pay him to bring him back in. So I'm not too worried about that. I don't see him going anywhere. there's some good options for him to go to. But right now, I think he's going to be a Packer for the next little bit. We've seen a lot of teams retaining these running backs so far. Speaking of running backs you do not want to retain, we've got a question here: Gurley, Gage, or Higgins from our good friend Sean. Wow. This one is very interesting as well. Gage, I just don't trust. Julio is out. They ruled him out already, so he might be super sneaky here. Gurley, I can't really get behind too much. I may be leaning towards Higgins here, just simply because I think the volume may be there, and he may get some garbage time play late in the game. What do you think, Calvin?
I'm going to go the other way. Now, I'm assuming this is T. Higgins. I think he may be your best bet for I hope I get a touchdown. But doing some research this past week, one of the things that jumped out about the Chargers over the last 6 weeks, they've actually been really good against wide receivers. So actually he got the third least amount of points over the last 6 weeks. On the flip side, they're actually 22nd against running backs, giving up fantasy points to running backs. So that actually might not be a terrible play. I wish Jeff was here so we could ask him how healthy Gurley was. It doesn't sound like he's necessarily as healthy as we would like him to be. But if they're putting him in and they're letting him go, then I think if he's going to get 15, 16 touches, then he's as likely as anybody to score probably. So yeah, I think Gurley is the way I'd go here.
So you got Gurley. I got Higgins against that Dallas Cowboys secondary. PPR, I think you got to give it to Higgins, though, don't you? If you were talking PPR or standard, maybe leaning towards – I may be more inclined to go Gurley if we're doing standard, but this being PPR, I'm probably going with Higgins just on volume, and this could turn into a shootout because I don't think either defense can stop anyone here. Ian hit us up here. Another PPR. Need to start 3. Sanders, Mostert, Gio Bernard, Curtis Samuel, Crowder, Gallman, and Gurley. So obviously we just talked about Gurley and how we feel. Crowder is battling a little bit of a calf injury right now. So if you get a clean bill of health, you pretty much have to start Crowder at this point. I don't want to say he's a must start, but Crowder versus Seattle. Seattle gives up points to everybody, but especially to slot receivers. So I think if healthy and Crowder is in the lineup, you have to make sure Crowder gets into your lineup. For me, it comes down to I really like what Gallman's doing lately. I really could see him getting in my lineup as well, just because defense and running game seems to be really clicking for the Giants. Daniel Jones is back in. He's coming back off that hamstring injury himself, so I'm not trusting him to be running. So I think he's going to hand that ball off. You may see a heavy dose of Gallman here. And then I'm probably going to give Mostert the other start. Miles Sanders, you're dead to me already. I can't trust Miles Sanders. I know we want to go back to him. I know we want to trust him. You spent a late first, early second probably to get him in your redraft leagues. But for me, I'm going Crowder, Gallman, and Mostert.
Well, so he adds this little tidbit in the end that he's got to start at least 2 of the running backs. So I think that's really important in this, which means we're only going to start 1 wide receiver. So it kind of comes down to Curtis Samuel and Crowder. And I agree with you. Crowder is definitely the right way to go there. Miles Sanders, I just don't know if there's any way I can start him against the Saints defense. I think they're going to rely on him more potentially this week. There's been a lot of talk of that with Jalen Hurts coming into the lineup. But couldn't you also see a scenario where they're talking about relying more on the run game, and really what that means is they're going to give Boston Scott and Jordan Howard more touches, and you're still going to see the same 12 to 15 carries from Miles Sanders, most of them coming in the first half, and everybody leaves frustrated. That Saints defense is really good against the run. It's literally been 3 years since they've allowed a 100-yard rusher. So that's the guy that probably got you into a lot of these playoffs. Well, I guess maybe not actually. So maybe, that's the bigger name, the highest draft pick, but he's pretty low on this list for me. I actually am going to say Gallman. I agree with you on that. And then I'm going to say Gurley. I just think the matchup's better than people think. I think people are fading him, and I think he's going to be pretty good this week.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys like may end up regret not starting because it is Todd Gurley. He could get 2 touchdowns the way the Falcons play. I just like Mostert here. You've seen him coming back from his injury, him being involved in that 49ers offense already. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a slight edge here. Speaking of running backs, Falcons suck. Chargers comeback game. If Swift plays tomorrow, do I start him? Calvin, I'll let you handle this one first.
Absolutely. I think you're starting any running back against the Green Bay Packers right now. They've been very generous to running backs, let's just say, and certainly bottom third of the league in the last 6 weeks, kind of just thinking about what's recent. That's the thing, is so many of these matchups, when you pull it up in whatever app you like to use for your fantasy football, whatever it is, it gives you season long rankings. I like to look at much shorter sections when I'm thinking about start and sit at this time of year. So, last 5 or 6 weeks, that's plenty of data that tells you what they're doing. Look at it a little bit closer and make sure they didn't just face, the best running back heavy teams recently. But yeah, I think DeAndre Swift, if you're looking at him, if he's playing, then that tells you he's over the sickness, he's over the concussion, and my guess is they would be full bore against Green Bay.
Who did Green Bay play last week?
Aaron Jones had the Beastquake run against who? I don't know. I've been thinking about Week 14 now for 4 days. Who they play?
Well, you're looking that up.
Yeah.
What's one thing we've said about Green Bay all year? They are basically running back lube. Okay, they're running back lube. Who are they playing this week? Detroit. DeAndre Swift. You're putting him in your lineup. You're not overthinking this. You're making sure you're getting him in. Miles Sanders, we don't talk about because he's dead to me. But DeAndre Swift is going in against some RB lube in that defensive front for the Green Bay Packers. You're popping him in your lineup every time. Another one here from Teo's girlfriend, who was definitely pointing out Philly for us. Mike Davis, Antonio Brown, Nick Mullins, Superflex. Who's starting in that PPR spot here, in the Superflex spot?
Oh, that's interesting. I know how much you love Antonio Brown. Is that your guy this week?
You know what? When I'm looking at this here, I might be so. My super flex, I'm usually going quarterback if I get that opportunity, as long as there's no penalties for incomplete passes and stuff like that. Kind of like how the Scott Fish Bowl was set up this year, where you get deducted per incomplete passes and whatnot. They're playing Washington this week. It's a tough matchup to pass against. Quarterbacks, I'm still going to go with Nick Mullins here, although Mike Davis is very interesting to me because McCaffrey is out again with that hamstring. So I'm not going to fault someone for going with Mike Davis here in this match. Antonio Brown, the Buccaneers have struggled to click since he's come to that team. And obviously the win-loss record shows it probably more so than what the product is on the field. So I'm going to super flex. I'm going to go with Nick Mullins here, but I'm not going to blame you for going Mike Davis. What do you got?
Well, it just maybe depends on how aggressive the scoring is for the quarterbacks. If it's one of those where it's a little bit more than you typically get, like for instance, like if you get bonuses for extra long passing touchdowns or anything like that, then maybe I would. But Washington's been extremely stingy against quarterbacks, so I can absolutely see a situation. Okay, no, he says no bonuses. I kind of like Mike Davis. I mean, I think PPR, I think he's going to catch a good bit of passes out of the backfield. Remember, there's no DJ Moore in this matchup, unless that's changed. But I think pretty sure he's out. He's got to be out. So that's potentially more targets for Mike Davis with no McCaffrey in there. Denver is 30th in the last 6 weeks at giving up fantasy points to running backs. So Mike Davis is definitely a guy that I'm trying to find a way to get him into my lineup. Normally, I'm with you. You start the quarterback, but in this case, I think the running back, Mike Davis, is who I'm plugging in.
Next question, very important. Our latest show sponsor is Manscape. Sean wants to know, should you Manscape vertically or horizontally? Now, Calvin, I've been following and tracking everyone's packages from Manscaped, and I know yours has shown up on your doorstep now too.
It actually has not. I have not received it. Did you get a notification that it was?
No, I just thought it was due there on Friday.
I thought so too, and I looked for it all day on Friday, and it never came in. So I was a little disappointed. Hoping on Monday I get a chance to actually answer this question. But gosh, seems like vertically.
It has to be vertically. You got to go against the grain there. You can't go cut. You can't do anything. It's not like cutting grass, right? When you cut grass, sometimes you go vertically, then you switch it up to horizontally, and then you do angles. You do kinds of different things just to kind of keep everything nice, neat, and trimmed, and nice and level. But here, if you go horizontally, there's way too much risk of damage. You have to make sure you go vertically so you can kind of push things where they need to be and go the right direction, right? So for me, it's vertically all the time. Horizontally doesn't quite do the trick. I don't want to get between my thighs and kind of pull things up and then try and go sideways. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for me to do that. When I so I don't know about you, Calvin, what you guys do down in Louisiana there and whatnot, but here up in Canada, the Great White North, it gets a lot colder here, so we make sure we go vertical on this one.
Now, here's the thing, okay? I actually also have a pubescent son in this house. So it's very possible that it wasn't just somebody snatching off my doorstep. It could have been an inside job, if you know what I mean. So I just maybe I should do a little bit of digging to make sure.
Does your son, has he got a girlfriend yet?
We're getting there. We're getting there. He's definitely, he's got some interest. He's my oldest, so it's the first time I've kind of gotten to that point. So it's getting there.
But he's like what? He's like 12 years old. They haven't even put seed on the turf yet. There can't be no grass growing yet for mowing.
You never know.
Now saying that, I had a full beard like in the like 6th grade. So anything is possible, really. But that's not the point.
Right.
The point is,
he'll get in the comments. Let's see if he's in the comments. Go ahead and tell us.
He hasn't jumped in right now. I know if I was in the comments as a kid, you'd be hearing all kinds of good stories from me. Anyway, yours obviously might go snatched it off your doorstep. I'm pretty confident Border Patrol is using mine right now. Right. It has not made it into the country yet, so we're still waiting on that. I'm sure we'll appreciate it before it gets to me at this rate. Make sure so the main thing with the Manscaping, the Lawnmower 3.0, it's got those beautiful blades there, the 7,000 RPM action going on. It's Christmas. You want to make sure your package is neatly wrapped for anyone you may deliver to this holiday season, so to speak. That's probably a pretty good idea. I'm kind of going through the chat here. Hollywood is in here. That means Hollywood, we're going to have to get you into this chat room here, into the screen here for a little bit. I know you've got another show to do it here. I'm just trying to find what. There we go.
Did you see we got a question here? Tight ends, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, or Cole Kmet at tight end. What are your thoughts there?
Well, for one, it's a no-brainer. It's Waller, and Waller. Andrews is coming off the COVID list, type 1 diabetic. I don't know if there's going to be any kind of complications there. This is the first round of my playoffs. As much as I want to get him in my lineup because he is a stud, I'm tempering those expectations, and I would probably rank him right now for safe-wise, Waller, Kmet, and then Andrews, just because I'm a little worried right now about getting Andrews into my lineup. I don't know. Do you have that same fear with Andrews?
I would switch Andrews and Kmet there just because I'm just not ready to trust Kmet. I can't remember the last time I felt like a rookie tight end was trustworthy to begin with. But you can't sit Darren Waller after that game he put up. There's no way. I can't sit him. I do like Andrews, and especially if we hear that he's good to go and fully healthy. I like Andrews. Great matchup this week. So speaking of great matchups, man, Hollywood joining Dingus right here on the starts and sits with the Dynasty Vipers. That's a great matchup.
So funny story. We were supposed to get our IDP Devi action in last night, but the squirrels got to Hollywood's internet again, and we got postponed again. So we're like, well, why not? Let's bring Hollywood back in here. We had a good time last week talking starts and shits, so let's bring them back in here.
No, I love a good shit.
Hey, that's what we are about. If you miss a start and you have them on the sitter, they're basically on the shitter, right?
There you go.
Like a slogan. That and the fact I literally can't say starts and shits. I can't say starts and sits. It's like a tongue twister for me. It's inside my head. We talked about this. When I did the Big Mac smoothie challenge, and every time I got to my lips, I started gagging. That's kind of like sits is with me right now. As soon as I use starts and in front of the word sits, it turns into shits. And it's like inside my head right now. I don't know if you ever get that way where your tongue gets all twisted up, at least before 9 p.m. on a Saturday night.
You're asking me on a Saturday? That's what I was fixing to say. I mean, come on. And yes, I put a lot of time into my hair, so thank you, Sean, for noticing.
Well, Hollywood, I'm not that far behind. If I dip this tip here a little bit, she ain't very
Well, you done said dip the tip. Whoa. Whoa, that's more than I wanted to know. Oh.
Hey.
Whoa.
I'm a wordsmith. I have a way with words. It was funny because everyone's like, what are some of your most quotable lines that you throw? I said, you know what? I don't even know what I say half the time. And of course, Hollywood, you're probably like me. Anytime you go on a show and you do a show, you don't listen to the show you were just on, whether it's your show or another show. I never listen to myself because, quite frankly, I don't even like the sound of myself.
I honestly don't think I've ever listened to a full show of IDP Nation that I was on. I can't stand the way I sound, so I just can't.
I can honestly say I don't think I've listened to a full show of IDP Nation that you were on either.
Hey, there we go. 2 for 2, baby.
Well, man, let's talk some matchups here. Let's talk about. Come on, let's go. Let's preview some of these games.
We got Houston, Chicago kicking us off Sunday morning. What do you got for us here, Calvin?
So we talked a little bit about this on Wednesday, but I think when you look at what Deshaun Watson has been doing, you absolutely are starting him. I don't care who is at wide receiver for him. I'm seeing a lot of people nervous about starting him right now because Cooks is questionable, Cutie. There's all kind of people that are not suiting up for him. But I think you're definitely starting him, even though it shows Chicago, their year-long numbers have been very good. Past 6 weeks, though, they have not been a very good defense. They're actually 29th at giving up fantasy points to opposing QBs. You're starting him with confidence. I think the other guy that I really like in that, because of some of the wide receivers being banged up, because you don't have David Johnson, I think you're starting to look at Jordan Akins. I'm not sure the right way to say that, but the tight end there, I think he's a guy that if you're desperate, that's somebody I'm throwing in. I'm starting him over Jonnu Smith tomorrow in one of my leagues, by the way, with Jonnu Smith coming back from his injury. And then of course it's going to be David Montgomery. He's going to be 3 for 3 in his little string of matchups here that we were telling you about a few weeks ago. And I'm excited to see him run wild and help people in the playoffs.
So when we're talking starts and sits, we're talking about getting excited here. And I don't know about you, but I still haven't found my pants from Thursday Night Football and Cam Akers show going on. So if you followed our show, you knew I was starting him. I was preaching him. I've been preaching him all year. Anyway, just kind of quick recap. Brandon Cooks, neck, foot, he's questionable, but he's expected to play. Kiki Kuti, knee, questionable. He practiced Thursday and Friday. He's also expected to play. Darnell Mooney did not participate all week to personal reasons, but Nagy still expects him to play, so you can probably still get him in your lineup. And Allen Robinson is good to go. He is off the injury report. I think he was battling a bit of a knee injury. Do you got anything to add on the IDP side there for Houston and Chicago there, Hollywood?
I think Khalil Mack is a cheap option right now. I mean, he started the season off pretty good with the sacks, and everybody's down on him, so I think he can, that's a good matchup for him. I'm not too crazy about Houston's offensive line, so I like him. Eddie Jackson's a good play. For Texans, I think you got to look at J.J. Watt. And then, of course, you're starting Zach Cunningham. I was super high on him to begin the season, and he's not letting me down. He's easily a top 5 linebacker right now.
Speaking of top 5 people in IDP at flex positions here, Kenny Vaccaro has been playing pretty good football for Tennessee here as far as the safety position goes. David Long, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, or the aforementioned Kenny Vaccaro for you, Daryl, this week?
Ooh, I got to go Vaccaro and probably Chauncey Gardner Johnson if you need two. If you just need the one, then I'm going Vaccaro because I think with what Jacksonville does, there's going to be plenty of opportunities on the backside for Vaccaro and Byard to make plays.
Well, we've seen the one thing with Jacksonville. You want to talk about Jacksonville? The one thing they do well is run the ball, and James Robinson is a stud. So when we get to that a little bit later, that gives more opportunity for a box safety like Vaccaro to get involved in the game. So that's definitely a more favorable match than, say, what Gardner Johnson would be facing this week with a new quarterback in Jalen Hurts for Philadelphia. So I think the scripts are going to be favoring probably Vaccaro over Gardner Johnson.
Right.
We're gonna jump ahead here because we are men of the people. Baltimore, Cleveland. Let's talk Baltimore, Cleveland here. Quick notes here. Austin Hooper, neck, pushable, did not practice the last 2 days. He is unlikely to play, so that means Harrison Bryant, get ready because you could have a heavy dose this week. And that's really the only injury to note in the Baltimore-Cleveland matchup. Hollywood, IDP side, Baltimore, Cleveland. What do you got here? Remember, Myles Garrett is obviously a start here, especially with the things that he can do on the edge position, especially with Staley still not playing this year. So when you've got an inexperienced tackle out there against Myles Garrett, that's a mismatch that I think Cleveland's going to be looking to exploit.
Yeah, they should be. I mean, like you said, he's a must start. So now that he's back, I think they're going to pay a lot of attention to him. So I think it's going to be Olivier Vernon is going to be a good matchup for him to take over. So we'll see how that goes. And then I'm also liking the safety on the back end. I forget his name. It just slipped my mind. Oh, Deshaun Elliott. I think it's a big game for him. He's been playing super well this year, took over, kind of took away from Chuck Clark a little bit, I think. I think everybody jumped on Clark because Tony Jefferson was let go or whatever, and they thought Clark would be the guy, and he has been for the most part, but Elliott has done really well and cut into him. And then, as always, if you need a corner, Marcus Peters. You can't find a better option than him right now.
The only other better option than Marcus Peters being a corner is Marlon Humphrey because he seems to be always involved getting his nose dirty there too.
I just wanted to say Peters. That's why I kind of.
Well, that's what we're about here. Anytime you can talk about dipping the tip or your Peter or manscaping, that's what we're about here. We're equal opportunists. Calvin, what do you got on this one?
So, just from a football perspective, I think Cleveland steamrolls Baltimore in this game. I know that Baltimore had a nice little comeback, but they were playing the Dallas Cowboys. They were playing them. That was a must-win game for them. And you could say this is a must-win game as well, but Cleveland is playing as well as anybody in the league right now. They just went through Tennessee, and all due respect,
really,
Tennessee.
That's just not nice. See, this is why I don't come on the show right here. Just this.
Nothing but love, but you know, in other words, that's a really good win against a really good Tennessee team.
Right.
Baltimore, the best thing they've done the last few weeks is win a game against the Cowboys, and I'm just not. I don't think that there's enough there with Baltimore. Yes, their offense looked like it was back on track, but the Dallas Cowboys have a way of doing that. I don't think they're going to have as easy of a time against Cleveland. And I'm expecting to see a lot of Nick Chubb. I'm expecting Kareem Hunt to get mixed in there, although we're lowering expectations because of his injuries. And I actually kind of have a feeling about Austin Hooper a little bit this week. I think there could be some action for him in this game and then finding ways around the end zone to get him involved.
Man, you just don't listen to me, do you? I just told you Hooper's not playing.
What'd you say?
Is he out?
Completely ignored me.
Questionable.
He's out. He hasn't practiced. He's not going to be in the lineup. That's why I said in the intro to the game, like, Harrison Bryant, fire him up. He's going to be a fantastic start. See, Daryl, this is not ideal. I just can't.
You see what I'm doing?
I just can't. Oh, shit.
All right, so not good. Harrison Bryant, even better. I like him better.
Now, saying all that, I bet you Hooper does somehow miraculously play now. I just called you out on that.
Right.
I'll look like the idiot.
If we make a bet on it, he will. He'll score 3 touchdowns tomorrow.
You know what? Oh, man, I missed an opportunity. Daryl, I should have said, you know what? I bet you any money Harrison Bryant outscores Austin Hooper this week.
You should have,
and
yeah.
put something on it. Oh,
And then Harrison's going to end up with negative points or something.
that would be my luck. Dang, nabbit, me and my good-mannered Canadian heritage. Always wrecking things for me.
Damn, I forgot you were Canadian.
I know, it's hard to believe, hey?
No,
It's
actually, it's not. It's actually not hard to believe.
It's my southern charm.
Easy now. Don't be infringing on my territory here.
Is Tennessee really that south? I mean, there's still things more south than Tennessee.
Well, yeah, if you want to call the penis of the United States Florida, yeah, they're way south.
Well, they are the tip of the South. I'm just saying.
Oh my God, I can't with you tonight. I just can't. Calvin, it's going to have to be me and you from now on because I can't with this Coach.
Well,
Matt, whoever he is, I can't.
I'm more southern than Hollywood too. I'm down in Louisiana, so I'm actually I look up to Hollywood.
As you should.
And as geographically speaking, I'm always looking down at Hollywood.
As you should. I keep forgetting that you're in Louisiana. I don't know why. I know this, but I keep forgetting.
I know he doesn't have like that. When I think of Louisiana, I think like Blues Brothers, Erykah Badu, the whole voodoo thing going on that the Blues Brothers had, and he doesn't give me that vibe at all.
Waterboy. Everybody thinks of Waterboy when they think
Waterboy. Yeah, I expect that kind of Cajun kind of.
He doesn't have the accent though. To me, I don't hear it. So I guess
a little bit of catfish and critters or something out of him. I expect out of, but you just don't get on that over there. You know what I'm saying?
Did you just say catfish and craters?
Catfish and critters.
Oh, critters. My bad. Carry on.
tip of the South. I like it.
The tip of the South, Florida.
We think of Florida the same way, so it's all good.
You know, even people from Florida think of Florida the same way. So it's really outside of like Disneyland and maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's
I'm glad Faith ain't listening because she'd really be hating us right now.
That is also true.
They're also losing to LSU right now, so
hey, I'm all for it.
That's pretty bad, Florida. That's bad.
Well, I think right now, if you lose to the LSU Tigers, you basically have to denounce all your bowl eligibility on the spot. I think that's pretty much the rule right now.
Yes.
If you lose to LSU right now, you have to denounce a lot of stuff.
Speaking of denouncing, we're going to get into the Cowboys Bengals game here this week because there's a lot of things we're denouncing, especially on the IDP side. Hollywood, I want to ask you this here first when we're talking IDP. When you're looking at Pornhub there on your phone, are you starting Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch? Can you trust Van Der Esch right now for your playoffs?
No, I'm not. No.
Remember, Hollywood, we had this debate with some other people on the IDP thing probably 2-3 years ago, and I was
I don't remember past yesterday, so you've lost.
Yeah, I know, but you're gonna come down the rabbit hole with me here a little bit. And I talked about Jalen Smith because remember, Van Der Esch was going in the first couple rounds of IDP drafts, and Jalen Smith was going considerably later, 4 or 5 rounds later. And I was like, Jalen Smith is the better linebacker here. You're going to want to get him. And right now you're getting him at a much better deal than Van Der Esch. Well, now we're 3 years later, and Jalen Smith clearly is the number 1 linebacker. Mm-hmm. And Van Der Esch is a guy you just can't trust right now. There's a lot of guys on Dallas right now that I'm afraid to put in my lineup. I have to. Like Randy Gregory is finding himself in my lineup in DN leagues where I have to start a guy in deeper ones. But is there anyone here you can trust in the Bengals and Cowboys game outside of Jalen Smith?
Yeah, I was asked about Aldon Smith today, and there's no way I'm trusting him right now. He had that first 3-week boom where he was lighting the world on fire, and since then he's just dropped off. I would rather start Gregory over him easily because at least Gregory's getting the pressures. He's getting back there. So for Dallas, no. I mean, other than Smith and maybe Gregory, I'm not looking at anybody else. For Cincinnati, like Sean mentioned here, maybe Sam Hubbard. maybe if it's a super deep league and you want to take a risk, maybe you're looking at Akeem Davis-Gaither and Logan Wilson. They got some upside. And then really for Cincinnati, you're looking at Jesse Bates and Von Bell. That's their two right there because they're huge tackle number guys. They're basically leading their defense, really. So,
well, I'm glad you mentioned the former Saint himself in Von Bell because I really like what he's been doing this year. He's kind of been the bright spot, so to speak, of that Bengals secondary and that defense right now with his production, those tackle numbers right now. So for me, Von Bell is a guy I will trust as a DB in leagues. Maybe even throw him in my IDP flex depending on how the scoring all works. Yeah. But really, I'm with you. Jalen Smith on one side and Von Bell possibly on the other side are the two IDP guys I could start.
And I would trust Jesse Bates. He's been legit since I've been beating that drum since he come in the league, and surprisingly, people still sleep on him. And speaking of Von Bell, man, he made Sean Williams absolutely invisible, obsolete. And I kind of thought that might be the case, but I kind of thought Williams would play more of a linebacker role, and that hasn't even come up. So Sean Williams is going to be gone next year. He's going to be playing for somebody somewhere. It's just not going to be the Bengals.
And we speak about how volatile this game is for IDPers. But on the flip side, outside of the quarterback play, you really can start a couple more plays, especially on the Dallas side. And in deeper leagues, some more Bengals. Calvin, what do you got for us?
So on Dallas' side, I actually think Andy Dalton has a nice warm welcome waiting for him with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think has a chance to go to kind of go ham this week. My expectations are actually the highest for Andy Dalton that they've been. Going back into Cincinnati, having a chance to see, where he spent all that time and having something to prove. Like, hey, you guys let go of me. Keeping me around here would have been a really good idea as you start whatever the guy's name is, Anderson or somebody, whatever his stupid name is. But kind of turned himself into a team that right now, whereas with Joe Burrow and actually with Andy Dalton last year, they ran a very up-tempo, very high-paced offense. They ran a lot of plays. In fact, they led the league in plays run with Joe Burrow. When you take Joe Burrow out, you can see what the head coach thinks about Bruce Allen, Brandy Allen, whoever Allen. You can see what the head coach thinks about him because they're now running like 45, 46, 47 plays a game, which is way below their 70 or so they were running before. So he doesn't trust him. He wants to slow Tim Allen, whoever his name is. The coach doesn't trust him. I certainly don't trust him. I'm looking for other players outside of my Tyler Boyds and my T. Higgins to play. I'm not starting Gio. I'm just not trusting really any of the Bengals at all.
And on the Cowboys side, I think you fire everyone up. I think Andy Dalton, you mentioned it, revenge game. And Jerry Jones isn't going to pay the COVID people to take his own player out like he did with Baltimore to take out Dez Bryant. But
you just said the COVID people.
I think Amari Cooper is going to get going again. He had a good week last week. He had that big catch there to kind of add those numbers to him a little bit, maybe balloon them up a little bit. CeeDee Lamb, if CeeDee Lamb ain't too busy partying in a non-social distancing.
Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that. Don't be hating on him.
No, but there's a lot of sensitive people out there. And when you've got this, and a lot of us are being told we can't do this and we can't do that, and you see people going out there to do it, and it's videoed, you've got to know as an athlete,
oh my God,
the perception is not good for you.
Perception. Who cares about perception?
I care about perception because when we talked about this at the beginning of the season, basically Daniel Jones and can you remember the Giants receiver at the time? Was it Barkley? They were caught without their masks on and absolutely got crucified on Twitter. But I haven't seen anyone go after CeeDee Lamb on Twitter yet for this alleged video. I don't know when it was. Someone says it was recent. Who knows? The reality is. So we'll see if he plays because I don't know what the perception out there. Jerry Jones has probably paid people off to let him play either way, so I'm not too worried about it. If he's playing, you play him. If Cooper's playing, you play him. If Gallup's playing, you play him. Where I'm stuck on is that Ezekiel Elliott. I may not want to play him this week. I may take Tony Pollard over Ezekiel Elliott because of what Elliott's been doing this year. He hasn't been getting the job done. Pollard's looked like the better running back, both in the receiving game and the running game. Calvin, you're shaking your head, but can you defend Elliott right now?
Not in the sense that I think that Elliott is going to be an RB1 or anything like that. I certainly don't have the expectations that I would have had on him if Dak Prescott was quarterbacking this game. But there was a big dip from him. When it went from Dak Prescott down to Andy Dalton, he went from 26 points a game or whatever it was down to barely over 10. So do I think he's going to have a 25-point game this week? Probably not. But do I think he's going to put up double digits and be a guy that is much more likely to get double-digit touches than Tony Pollard? Yes. There are other running backs I would have around the league over him, but not Tony Pollard.
So what if I told you here, Ezekiel Elliott's calf is questionable but expected to play? It's a risky start, especially with considering the duds that he's put up in the last couple of weeks. He is battling that calf injury. That's why I think Pollard is a better start in this matchup. And on the flip side, T. Higgins is also a risky play. This is coming from Jeff here now. He says T. Higgins – he would sit, even if he's active, because of the injuries.
I'm sitting Elliott. I think I am. I'm with you. I'm sitting Elliott, and if I need a flex, I'm taking Pollard. Little risk reward, but, I mean, sometimes you got to make those moves. Sometimes those are the game-changing winning moves right there.
No risk, no biscuit.
There you go. And I do love a biscuit, especially if it's smothered in gravy.
I'm not gonna argue with that. That seems like a very good start right there. Biscuits and gravy. Speaking of good starts, Kansas City, Miami, IDP speaking here. Is there anyone you want to even think about starting IDP wise in this matchup? For me, corners are definitely in play. Byron Jones, Xavier Howard. I think you can see a pick here from Xavier Howard. Outside of the corners, I don't know if I'm wanting to start anyone. Hollywood, who do you got for us on the IDP end?
I'm with you on Xavier Howard. He has been playing lights out this season. Position specific, probably Chris Jones at defensive tackle. After that, Kyle Van Noy, if he's healthy, I think you got to consider. But other than that, I don't know that there's anybody that I'm must starting right now for either side other than those.
What about offensively speaking, Calvin? Obviously the Tyreeks, the Patrick Mahomes, the Kelseys, you're firing them all up. Myles Gaskins just came on the injury report, and he looks like he's out. What do you got for us for this matchup?
Myles Gaskin.
Well, first I just want to say that Tony Pollard has 8 fantasy points in the last 2 weeks total. I don't understand what you guys are talking about with Tony Pollard.
God. That's it. Calvin's out. You're back in, dingus. That's how this works. Calvin's out. You're in.
You can't tell people to start Tony Pollard in week 14. No.
If you're telling them to sit, if you're saying sit Ezekiel Elliott, you can. One of those two has got to go. So if you're sitting Elliott, you're starting Pollard. If you're sitting Pollard, you're going to start Elliott. It's either or. There's no.
I just think the injury to Elliott's calf could limit his role, and you'll see a lot more Pollard.
And we've already seen the fumbling issues be a factor. It's already those fumbling issues has already been an impact on Elliott a little bit.
Look, Sean's got the right idea here, guys.
Oh my God. I can't with Sean. I can't with him.
He's right. He's
not.
You know what? If you go to me though, if you say Gurley or Elliott this week, I would probably lean Gurley.
Oh yeah, me too.
I
would
definitely.
Too.
Yeah, definitely.
I would too.
Definitely.
But it's not like Elliott had 18 touches last week. It's not like he's been, bad. He had double-digit fantasy.
His yards though?
77 yards or something like that, I think.
That's not horrible.
Yeah, 4 catches, 18 yards. It's not what you drafted him for.
Right, exactly.
But I don't think it's completely unusable. I think if you're starting Tony Pollard in week 14, I don't know how. It's probably in the consolation round. That's all I'm going to say. It's not. You're not in the fantasy playoffs if you're starting.
Joke's on you. I am starting with my flex playoff right now.
Well, you'll have a better draft pick in that league than you thought you were going to have then. How about that?
Before I let you get into too much of the Miami, Kansas City, I want to make sure you're listening here so you don't say start Gaskins. Gaskins is out on COVID. He is out. Somed Ahmed is out as well. Rita is doubtful.
Both of them did.
DeAndre Washington was a full practice on Friday. Low concern on his injury. Clyde EdwardsHelaire was a full practice all week. Expect to get his typical workload. Go ahead. What do you got?
Which typical workload for Clyde EdwardsHelaire? I don't even know what that means because Andy Reid has been just much more likely to go to the pass lately. I mean, he was opening things up with Mahomes. I feel like this is hey, Pat Mahomes is the very best player in the league right now. Let's get the ball in his hands as often as possible.
Is he really the best player in the league?
The best one not named Aaron Rodgers or Aaron Donald.
He's better than Aaron Rodgers.
Screw Aaron Rodgers. Get out of here with that bullshit.
I mean,
Aaron Donald,
he's not Tony Pollard. He's not Tony Pollard. So right below Tony Pollard.
I can't with either one of y'all. I can't.
So I don't know. I'm not trusting Clyde EdwardsHelaire at all in this. But I do think that on the Miami side, now I'd have to be in the Tony Pollard desperation range. But I actually do like DeAndre Washington a little bit in this game. If he's going to get all the carries and he's actually pretty good out of the backfield, catching passes. So I kind of think that
attaboy, Sean.
If you're really desperate, I think he's there you go. There you go. Let's play him. That's right. But in reality, I'm just really excited about this game on not just in a fantasy football level, but in a football level, because I want to see what happens when Tua has to try and match points with somebody. He has not really had to do that yet. He got pulled out of the only game where they were really trailing, and that was against Denver. I want to see him in a game against Kansas City, trailing, or at least having feeling like I've got to get this ball down the field. I got to score because as soon as I do, Pat Mahomes is going to get it, and he's going to probably score too. So I want him in that kind of game script. I want him to throw the ball 35 times. I want him targeting Devontae Parker a bunch, which I think he's going to do. I want him targeting Mike Gesicki, especially down there near the red zone. I think he's going to do that too. And then on the Kansas City side, it's easy. You start Mahomes, you start Kelsey, you start Hill. That's one of the only guys there I trust.
I got 2 words for you. The cheetah. That's all you need to know. All you need to know.
Yep.
This is an interesting matchup for me. You got the high octane offense of the Chiefs, and you've got that Brian Flores defense in Miami that I will not bet against.
Nope.
You want to talk about getting into a shootout? We can all talk about how awesome this Kansas City Chiefs offense is and how they can get going. But you got to remember, the Raiders kept with them in both matches, and the Raiders do not have a defense that's as good as Miami's. They don't. And Miami's defense, they can match up with just about anyone across the board right now, especially in that back end. You have you've got the best corner possibly going in the league right now, in Xavier Howard. You've got probably the most athletically freakish corner in the league in Byron Jones. You got corners that can match up with Tyreek Hill, with the Sammy Watkins, with the McCole Hardmans. They've got speed to burn on the back end too. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I don't know if Tua is going to necessarily be chasing points, but I see him in more of a what we've seen out of Joe Burrow this year, where out of necessity he's had to go point for point. Garbage time, so to speak, Burrow time, right? I could see that coming, but I'm not putting anything past Miami's defense here. I think Cheetah will still get his. I think Tyreek Hill's going to get his. Kelsey might get his too, but I don't think Kansas City is going to score as much as people are believing right now in this matchup. I think this is going to be an interesting one. And so the Raiders will be a playoff team in a playoff position after this week. Don't you worry about it.
How much you think in Kansas City is going to score?
Man, I don't know, man. It all depends on Xavier Howard. If he's literally going to take half the field away from him this matchup, man.
I don't think it depends on Xavier Howard. It's going to depend on Tyreek Hill. If he starts off like he did a couple of weeks ago, you can just shut the lights off because it's done.
Tyreek Hill also had a couple touchdowns last week. One that didn't even get reviewed by his own team, thinking he didn't catch, and he did. But you know what I mean. And then he had and then the one called back on the penalty and stuff like that. Tyreek Hill is a fantastic.
You know what? Tyreek Hill is the biggest impact big play player since Randy Moss. Absolutely. Don't even add me on that.
When you see how teams have to game plan him, it's tough to argue that. I'm not going to put him in the Randy Moss category yet. But
not yet,
when you see how teams the way teams have to plan and game plan around him and specifically for him. But, man, I'm telling you, Brian Flores, he might actually be the one coach who might walk across the field and punch Andy Reid in the visor because that's what Brian Flores is about.
I'm with you. I love Brian Flores and what he's doing down there. And I think maybe once he gets another draft in, maybe 2 years, at least 2 years. You give him 2 years with another draft or two, Miami's going to be tough to deal with. I'm telling you.
So this matchup here is very tough for me I want both teams to lose. One, I'm a Raiders fan. I hate the Chiefs. Two, the Miami Dolphins are battling with the Colts and the Raiders for that last playoff spot. So I'm like, who do I cheer for? This is horrible. This is like Hollywood picking which sister to kiss, right? There's no winner in this whole thing.
Damn it, I don't have no sisters. They belong to everybody else, not me.
Hollywood, I can't believe you said that about Tyreek Hill being the best deep threat, big play wide receiver since Randy Moss. Like Kenny Britt doesn't exist. Come on, man.
Get the frick out of here with Kenny Britt. Gee, oh my God. Dang it. Where do you find these people? Oh my God.
Britt, man.
I can't.
Down in the South, Hollywood, where I find everything. Down in the South.
Do not lump him in with the South. You can lump him in with Florida, the penis of America. Just, I can't. Oh my God. I'm serious. I'm being serious with Tyreek Hill. The best deep threat since Randy Moss. Different type players, completely different games, but deep threat. I don't know of anybody that you would put in there. Anybody.
Well, he may not be considered a deep threat. He's always a threat with the ball in his hands. That's DeAndre Hopkins. The Arizona Cardinals head over to New York to face the Giants this week. Hollywood, is there anyone you can start here for the Giants or the Cardinals as far as IDP goes?
Have you not listened to me?
I've listened to you. I just block you out.
If you don't start Blake Martinez, I don't even want to know you. Don't even talk to me, unfollow me, whatever. Blake Martinez, I'm telling you, he's the real deal. Ryan Logan, need to start him for the Giants. Biggest mistake the Titans made was letting him walk away. They said that, it was, he wanted too much, but you can see what Tennessee's problems are in the secondary. They have nobody that can cover on those corners, and that's because Ryan Logan's gone. It did help that they got Desmond King, but definitely starting Martinez. You're definitely starting Ryan Logan.
Where the hell did DeAndre Campbell go?
DeAndre Campbell. Arizona?
Yeah, he's with there. He is with Arizona, but I'm saying, where has he been lately?
I don't know. I actually got a question about that today on Twitter. Campbell or Simmons. If Simmons gets the go, you got to go with him because I think Campbell's just so inconsistent. You don't know what's happening. You don't know. Oh, man. I think you got to go with the upside with Simmons there. Campbell, I don't know what the deal is, Coach. I really don't.
And me on the other side, when I'm looking at this, I'm not trusting Jordan Hicks. And if I got better options, I'm putting better options in there. DeAndre Campbell, I can't trust. Buda Baker and Tyrann Mathieu, you're putting them in there because they're who they are and they're going to get theirs. I think we're going to see a heavy dose. Calvin's going to mention this here in a second. We're going to see a heavy dose, in my opinion, of Wayne Gallman here this week with the Giants and with Daniel Jones nursing that hamstring. Sounds like he's good to go. And that means with Daniel Jones in there, hopefully the real Evan Ingram will step up. DeAndre Hopkins, neck, questionable. He's expected to play, but it's a tough matchup. I talked about how Miami's defense is rolling. The Giants' defense is rolling too. They're getting a little bit of everything. And Leonard Williams, Hollywood. Leonard Williams is a start for all your defensive line needs.
Yes.
Kenyon Drake, hip, questionable. He's expected to play, but you could see Edmonds coming in and stealing some of that workload. Calvin, what do you got on the offensive side here?
What I really like is, first of all, just from a real life NFL standpoint, this is about the point where we started falling in love with Miami last year too. They started playing a little bit better, and you started, all of a sudden they went from the number 1 overall pick to they fell to number 5. Things still worked out pretty well for them. And you're starting to see that here with Joe Judge taking over this team, and another that Bill Belichick coaching tree starting to look a little bit better than it did a couple of years back. And I really like what they're doing. Now, the one thing I'll say is they're averaging giving up 10 targets a game to running backs. So that's the most in the league in the last 5 games. So 6 weeks, but 5 games for them. So that probably, to me, I said this the other night, but I think Chase Edmonds probably gets some run here in this game. I've never recommended starting him, but I think that's a guy you definitely start him over Tony Pollard.
Oh, my God. No.
But
Oh, shit.
I'm also starting Kenyon Drake because I think this is if you're Arizona and you watch what New York just did to Russell Wilson, I mean, you got Kyler Murray, similar-ish type quarterback, at least in style. I mean, I don't know that you're I am facing a question right now where do I start Kyler Murray or do I start Matt Ryan? And I don't like either one of those options.
Oh, really? Really?
I don't like either one. And,
it doesn't matter if you don't like either one, but really, between the two, your question.
Which one do you like?
Oh, I'm taking Kyler Murray all day.
Okay.
If those are the two, it doesn't matter if I like them or not. If that's the two options, I'm taking Kyler Murray all day because his rushing upside puts him way up there.
I mean,
there's no arguing that. There's no arguing the rushing upside there. But if you look at the Falcons and who they got this week,
who do they buy?
Well, they got no Todd Gurley here. We know that for fact. Or not Todd Gurley. No Julio Jones. He's out of their lineup already.
Chargers.
They're playing the Chargers.
Okay, who does Arizona have?
Giants.
We're talking about them right now. The Giants.
Giants. Okay.
I don't like Kyler Murray's matchup here. I haven't liked what I've seen from him lately. I don't like either one. I don't like Murray. He's right. He faded this time last year too. I don't like Murray. I don't like Matt Ryan, but I think I trust Matt Ryan's floor a little bit more than Kyler Murray's floor in this matchup. And if I had to choose between the two, I'm
taking Murray. I'm taking Murray. I really am. I think Joey Bosa is I think he gets after Ryan a little bit with Tillery. I think that front four for the Chargers is a little bit better than what Atlanta has. Atlanta has. And with the rushing upside, I think you got to take Murray. You got to.
Question for you here. We're talking about Chase Edmonds here. Would you start Chase Edmonds over James Conner this week?
Cool.
Who does the Steelers have?
The Steelers are
playing the Bills, and the Bills have not been good against running backs. So
if Connor's healthy, I'm starting Connor.
Connor is way more likely to get 20 touches, especially coming off a week where everybody is beating them up over not being able to run the ball. You can kind of see Mike Tomlin going into that game, deciding I'm just going to run the ball over and over and over again. So
here's the thing. Connor doesn't play until Sunday Night Football either. So you got that on there. So if you're going Connor, you have to believe that he's starting for a fact, which I think he is treading in that direction. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more information before some of these games kick off tomorrow. Like I said, I'm all in the Matt Ryan over Kyler Murray just because that Giants defense is for real in my opinion. So what else we got here on that matchup? Arizona, New York, anything else you're looking at there?
No, I think for me, you've covered everything.
I think Sterling Shepard is a guy that, his targets have been consistent enough that I'd be interested in starting him. And that's really been a weak point of the Cardinals defense, giving up fantasy points to wide receivers. So
I do have a question. Evan Ingram, play him or no? Good matchup or no?
It's a good matchup with Daniel Jones coming back in. I think they're going to get going again. They started getting a little bit of chemistry. Colt McCoy was looking towards Evan Ingram last week.
Right.
The tight end is a bit of a wasteland for me, and the options are pretty thin out there outside of the big guys. I would probably start Evan Ingram over Mark Andrews this week because I'm afraid of where Mark Andrews is right now. If he's healthy to go with the diabetes coming off of COVID, I'm still not 100% certain that's the play I want to make. So I'd take Evan Ingram even over a Mark Andrews at this point. I think Evan Ingram's still a top 5 tight end start for you this week.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you can start. I don't think if you have Evan Ingram, I don't think you have a better option. Arizona's actually been okay against the tight end, especially lately. But I with Ingram, I almost look at him more like a wide receiver than I do a tight end anyway. So and that's an area where Arizona's not been good.
Speaking of teams that struggle against wide receivers, we've got Minnesota versus Tampa Bay in our next stop here. We'll start with the offensive side. Calvin, what do you got?
Man, I'm excited about this game. I really think you're going to see a very angry Tom Brady coming out after the bye. Well, it depends on if Kirk Cousins can keep up, but I kind of think maybe he can in this game.
This is at Tampa, right? Or am I
it's at Tampa. Now, remember,
Tampa, Cousins plays good on the road.
He can, as long as it's not prime time, and this is not.
right.
But, yeah, I mean, I 12 weeks without a bye. I mean, that's as long as anybody else in the league. Tom Brady's 43 years old.
Don't be a TB12 hater. Don't do it.
No, Rob Gronkowski. No, I'm saying Rob Gronkowski. He just came back in. I mean, that was a lot of weeks in a row for those guys. You started showing it there towards the end. They looked like they were winding down. A bye week, I think they get a chance to get on the same page. Bruce Arians seems like he's kind of a tinkerer. Like they were kind of tinkering with what's Tom Brady's offense look like? What can he do? What does Bruce Arians like to do? I think a bye week could have potentially fixed some of the things that were ailing them before. And I think this is the week where you see Tom Brady coming out gangbusters. I really like him, and I like all those weapons. I know Jeff left you some notes. I'm curious if he left you an update about Mike Evans. That's a guy that I'm definitely curious about. If he's not going to go, then Godwin and Brown turn into much better starts.
Love some Ronald Jones. Love some Ronald Jones.
I'm glad you mentioned the break. If there's a team that needed the bye week in week 13, it was Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin was getting the pins pulled out of his finger. You mentioned Mike Evans here. He is off the injury report. There's some mild concern given the limitation coming off the bye week. He had that hamstring. I think it was the hamstring going on there. So we talk about bye week and trying to get right, but really Evans didn't practice. Godwin was pretty limited all week, trying to get back in sync with Brady. AB was there getting the practice in, but he's batshit crazy, and I don't think he even remembers Monday, let alone he's like the Hollywood of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't even remember yesterday half the time. So they're kind of getting back. Kyle Rudolph is doubtful. Irv Smith was back. He's questionable, but he is expected to return. He did have some limited practices on Thursday, Friday, so you could see Irv Smith Jr. back in the lineup. Dalvin Cook is fantastic. This is like a matchup inside the matchups. You got the rookie corners in Dantzler and Gladney facing off against the Godwins, the Browns, Mike Evans, mismatch advantage Tampa Bay. You've got Dalvin Cook versus Devin White and Levante David. That's going to be a fun one to watch all day long. See, because we know Tampa Bay wants to get that Minnesota wants to get that run game going, but Minnesota can throw the ball as well as anybody too. Kirk Cousins with Justin Jefferson, Jamel Dean, Adam Thielen facing off against Bunting. These are some matchups inside the matchups I'm looking forward to watching probably more than any other matchup. Man, I love where my camera is. You can't see me move my hands down here. It's fantastic. I can be doing just about anything.
I don't want to know what you're doing with your hands. So that's
not sure.
But this really is a matchup inside the matchups type of matchup, if you know what I'm saying. I'm throwing the word matchup in there a lot. But so much intrigue here. And then on the flip side, you've got Ronald Jones. Now, the Vikings are a little dinged up there. Eric Kendricks got hurt last week early in the game, which hurt a lot of people trying to make that push into the playoffs because he played one series and then he was out. His status is still kind of questionable for me and where he's going to be there. So I'm not too sure what to expect, but I'm sick and tired of hearing about Tom Brady. I'm sick and tired of hearing about the Tampa Bay Bucks right now. You know what? I hope the Purple People Eaters of 2020 go out there and absolutely slap the Bucks around this week.
Oh God, I can't. That's it. I'm no longer talking to you.
So here's a note. So this is just something to watch. You're starting Dalvin Cook. Okay, there is talk about not starting him. You're starting Dalvin Cook, obviously.
Yeah, because Madison's still kind of banged up and out, ain't he?
Yeah, but here is something to watch. He does have some very tough matchups. I'm not excited about any of his matchups. Certainly in the fantasy playoffs, my expectations are lowered. Just something to watch. He got 38 touches last week. That is so many touches. I can't even imagine coming off of 38 touches in the NFL.
Well,
I bet he gets at least 30 this week.
And is he going to hold up to that? I mean, this is not a guy that's known for his durability. I mean, that's a lot of touches for a Dalvin Cook.
It is, but with Madison out, I mean, he's going to get the carry.
You're starting him, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know Dalvin Cook can handle 30 touches every game, and we know Hollywood can handle at least 3 touches before he explodes. But who do you trust the most? He needs Bash brother. He needs one. He needs Juju Schuster-Smith. He needs Monster.
Yeah, what you just said, that.
Who are you leaning here? Juju, Monster, Gio, or Parker? Me, personally, PPR, I'm firing up Devontae Parker against the Chiefs. PPR, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 10 catches. He might only get 90 yards.
Juju, Mostert, who? Parker.
Gio Bernard or Devontae Parker. Bottom of the screen there. You can see it if you want to look.
Okay. Schuster, Mostert, Bernard, or Parker. I'm going Parker.
Calvin, come burst their bubble because I know you're not liking Parker here.
Yeah, he's hating us right now.
No, it's not that I don't like Parker. I actually do like Parker, but I just like Juju Smith-Schuster better. I think coming off of a week where you saw Eric Ebron dropping passes, you saw Deontay Johnson dropping passes. Claypool only played like 30-something% of the snaps. I think you're going to see a little bit more of a comfort blanket here with Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think you're going to see him targeted double-digit times. So I trust Juju's targets more than I trust Parker.
See, and I'm the opposite. Juju for me, I think there's too many mouths in Pittsburgh still. I know they want to maybe get back to the ground and pound a little bit more since the running game hasn't been there the last couple of weeks. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, James Washington cutting into that a little bit last week. Juju, I'm sure he's fine, but I'm looking for that volume play right now. I'm thinking Parker's going to be that volume play. Obviously, Juju, I'm not going to argue with you that much on that. He is a talented receiver. I just think if we are getting what we expect to get, and that's the beautiful thing about fantasy football, you never get what you expect to get more often than not. But I think this is going to be a shootout in Miami there with the Chiefs, and I think Parker is going to see the higher volume going forward here. Hollywood, you went with Parker. Calvin's got Juju. We just talked about Tom Brady kissing people and stuff. Would you kiss your playoff chances goodbye starting Tom Brady over Deshaun Watson? I think so.
In other words, start Deshaun Watson. Yes.
I mean, if you have to pick between the two, you're starting Watson, but I don't know if if you don't have Watson, I don't know that starting Brady's you're kissing your playoffs goodbye. I'm not going to say that. No.
Yeah, I'm going Watson.
I think Brady comes out and has a hell of a game this week. But between the two, you're going to start Watson.
Yeah.
Heading over to our next matchup, Hollywood. How much time do you got with us still? I don't want to take you away from your.
All good. We had a issue, so we're not doing it tonight. So I'm all yours, baby.
Your OnlyFans time got pushed back. Is that?
Do what? No, we were scheduled to do a Patreon, and Dan wasn't able to do it. He's my one fan, so we've put that off for another night. So go ahead. You guys have got me. I'm not leaving.
Sean got it.
Typically, Calvin's
Of
kids are
course,
almost
Sean
usually, so.
Of course, Sean. I see Sean everywhere.
So for our next matchup, I'm going to let Hollywood cue this one up here to start with, because this is the Denver Broncos are going in to face perhaps the youngest, most talented defense up and coming in the Carolina Panthers this week. Who are you starting here? Because I think there's some good plays across the board here.
Yeah, I think
both sides.
Yeah, you got to start Shaq Thompson. You're definitely starting Jeremy Chin. Absolutely. That was a question I had tonight. Who was it? Jeremy Chin or I forget who it was, but it was Jeremy Chin. I think he has the big play upside. I mean, with the sacks, the interceptions, the return for touchdowns, it's just a no-brainer there. For Denver, I'm looking at A.J. Johnson and Josie Jewell. Outside of that, I'm kind of skittish on those. Von Miller's been hit or miss. That secondary's kind of been hit or miss. But A.J. Johnson and Josie Jewell, they've been the two big ones. They rack up a lot of tackles. Even though they are assists, they still get the huge volume of tackles. That, at least for me, that's who I'm looking at.
And for me, I'm looking at Brian Burns as a fantastic start here against Drew Lock there and that Denver offensive line. And on the flip side, I think A.J. Johnson against that Panthers line, I think A.J. Johnson just not only does he get the tackles, but he's a pressure guy too. He'll get the sacks too. Bradley Chubb, right. I think Chubb's going to be hungry this one. I think we could see a lot of quarterback sacks in this matchup here.
Yeah,
and I would be surprised if Justin Simmons factors into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like Simmons, but he's kind of been a little bit of a hit or miss at times. I mean, I think you're starting him because he's probably one of your top starters at that position. So I think you got to start him. Has a pretty good matchup ahead. So, I think you can go with Simmons. But I'm looking at Jewell. I'm looking at A.J. Johnson. I'm looking at the Jeremy Chin. If you're in a position specific league, I'm looking at Derek Brown. I think this could be a prime opportunity for him to blow up right here.
Well, he's going to get opportunity because when we flipped to the other side of the ball here, Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay, both ready to roll here. Calvin, who are you firing up offensively?
I need to know your answer on this, Calvin, because I have a lot of Melvin Gordon, so I'm listening. You got me.
All right, so we started off the year. This is one of those where we talked a little bit earlier about how when you look at your site, it's going to show you Melvin Gordon with a green matchup, everything looking good for Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay. And I'm going to say, not so fast. Oh. Carolina has actually been one of the absolute best teams at limiting fantasy points to running backs since week 8, number 4 in that category. Earlier in the year, that was not true. They were giving up all kind of points, lots of touchdowns. I mean, whoever you had at running back, you were starting them against Carolina. That is not who they've been lately. And Derek Brown, you mentioned him. I think he coming along as a rookie, I think he is really starting to shine. And that's what they brought him in for, right? I mean, they brought him in to shut things down right there up front. Brian Burns is playing well. A lot of really good things happening there in Carolina in the front. Unfortunately, on the back end, they have started to where they are not as good. So it's really flipped for them this season. The last 6 weeks, they have been the 27th against quarterbacks. So I actually kind of like Drew Lock as a kind of a what the heck, throw him in there type of a quarterback. I'd really like Noah Fant. Noah Fant, really good matchup here. They have been the 4th worst against tight ends in the last 6 weeks. I actually think KJ Hamler, his targets have been consistently going up, is one of those kind of toss him in as a flex type of a guy. I like the matchup on the Denver side. Denver is a team that I think that week where they weren't able to have a quarterback, they took it personally. And I think some of that, Drew Lock's the kind of guy that can get a chip on his shoulder and that might make him play better. So I with you. I understand, Sean, don't like Drew Lock ever, but I think this is where he could go out, throw the middle fingers up, and have a good week.
See, I hope Lindellians isn't listening right now because what I'm about to say is I don't know why Denver would take that personally because they played 13 weeks now without a quarterback so far. So I don't see that happening here. I don't trust anyone. But to flip over, Jerry Jeudy, Phillip Lindsay, Drew Lock are all off the injury report. No concerns there. On the other side, Christian McCaffrey will be out. DJ Moore will be out. That means Mike Davis is in. That means Curtis Samuel is going to get a lot more run time. And we could see Robbie Anderson go off again here with Teddy Bridgewater behind center. So those are guys you're all going to start. I think Curtis Samuel, I'm probably considering him as a flex option more than a wide receiver 2, probably more than the wide receiver 3 flex that has some serious upside this week.
Yeah, I like Mike Davis, the best out of all 3 of the running backs in this game.
Now, moving over to the Dingus Bowl, as I like to call it. We have got this is basically the sweatpantmover.com bowl featuring Corey Davis and James Robinson for me. This is like me choosing who's my favorite child in this one, because you know me, it's Corey Davis season all year long. You know me, it's James Robinson all day long. Hollywood, let's talk about some defense here. Is there anyone you could actually start defensively that's going to produce for you this week? And don't say Andrew Wingard.
Probably Joe Schobert, because they're going to get Derrick Henry right down their throat all day long. I expect at least probably 5 stiff arms to hell from him. Yeah. And, you know, 99-yard run a few years ago. I'm not even going to mention that. I mean.
So are you willing to say that Derrick Henry has a bigger game than James Robinson?
Absolutely. I'll stand on that hill all day. Against Sucksonville? Hell yeah.
It's a division matchup, man. I don't trust these division matchups as far as I can.
I don't care. This is Sucksonville. King Henry owns them.
Really? Because if I go back to last year, their first matchup, he didn't really own much more than 48 yards rushing.
Okay. That's an aberration.
But this is the second half of the season. Derrick Henry usually gets going in the second half, so I'll give you that. But I am not discounting James Robinson, because your Tennessee Titans defense is just as bad as Sucksonville's defense, so to speak.
Oh, I agree. If you got Robinson, you're starting him. Absolutely. Now, will he outdo Henry? I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, he will have a good game because our defense is trash.
And speaking of, here's what I'm getting. We talk about Joe Schobert getting a heavy dose of Derrick Henry, but Miles Jack has been living up to expectations here the last couple of weeks. He's quietly been putting into a season right now that we thought he could do when he got drafted in the first place. He's another guy I'm definitely thinking about starting here too, because like you said, I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Henry, and I think Schobert and Miles Jack are to see a lot of work.
Right.
If you want to get dirty, you want to get sneaky, I'm willing to throw in some Dwayne Smoot this week as a super sleeper.
Dwayne Smoot now. Yeah, absolutely.
Super sleeper D-line action there for you.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely.
But now, flipping it, there's really, defensively speaking, Kevin Byard could have a big game. Maybe pick up Mike Glennon is still a quarterback, so there's going to be those turnover issues there at some point. Glennon does a pretty good job of protecting the ball, but I still don't trust him. And the only reason he protects the ball, he's like a giraffe in Serengeti looking over all the trees, right? So you got him going on. What do you got, Calvin? Calvin, what do you got on your side here for this matchup? We know Corey Davis is going off. There's no doubt about that. He's in line for about 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. And James Robinson's probably going to go about 160 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. Who else are we looking at here?
No A.J. Brown love?
A.J. Brown's going to be less than Corey Davis like he has been all season.
Oh, wow. There we go.
Hey, fact check that. Go fact check that right now. Go fact check that.
I can't really disagree with you, but I don't. This week, I don't know.
I'll go do the dirty work. I'll go fact check this right now because Corey Davis is leading in yards after the catch, catches, every statistic possible over A.J. Brown right now.
He is, but I think Brown catches a big one this week, a long one, probably 50 plus. It's going to happen.
So how's this going to work? If I'm predicting Corey Davis to go for 150 yards, and you're predicting A.J. Brown to go for like 155, and Derrick Henry's going to run for 200 yards this game, how's this all going to work here? We know Jordan Smith is good for 0.
Two out of the 3, I'm taking Brown and Henry.
So That's a good segue into me talking about this matchup, because the first thing that I wrote down when I started looking at this matchup back on Wednesday or Tuesday when I was preparing for our Wednesday show, first thing I wrote down is this is a low-key fantasy goodness game. I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy points scored in this. I checked later in the week. It was a 53-point over-under from Vegas. That's a pretty high one. So I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy points. I think you're going to want a piece of this game. I think whether it's Derrick Henry, James Robinson, obviously, those guys you're absolutely starting. There's no chance that you're sitting Corey Davis after last week. No way you're putting him out of your lineup. I think there's an interesting stack here, too. I think if you're really desperate, I think Mike Glennon and Colin Johnson.
Oh, my God.
Running back, who's a rookie wide receiver who's been getting a lot of targets. They have a really good connection, and sometimes you see this. Sometimes you see the backup, or even in this case, the third-string quarterback has a good connection with one of those lower-tier wide receivers who has a lot of talent, but a lot of times in practice they work together. So those guys now have 12, 13 weeks of working together, whereas – he doesn't have that same kind of chemistry built up with DJ Chark or Laviska Shenault. He's got that built up with Colin Johnson. So I think that is a guy that is in my lower tier. If I'm super desperate, that's a guy that I like.
Yes, I'm not touching any of them. James Robinson, yes. Derrick Henry, yes. A.J. Brown, yes. Corey Davis, he's going to get the volume, yes. Outside of those four, I'm kind of not touching anybody. Tannehill's kind of whatever. I'm not sure if Jonnu Smith is playing this week. I haven't looked. Kind of been busy with inventory at work, so kind of behind. But
I think he is supposed to play.
See, if he plays, I think that kind of eats into that either eats into Brown or Davis a little bit, because I think he was out last week. So, man – Corey Davis is playing so good right now, for what he's done the first 4 years and all the crap he's took about being a bust. He's playing his ass off this year. And that's even with A.J. Brown having some big games and with Derrick Henry having some big games. So, honestly, I think Corey Davis has done this year what he was drafted and everyone expected him to do. I honestly, I hope they re-sign him. I hope they keep him because I think he's a great compliment to Brown and Jonnu and for Tannehill and Henry. But James Robinson, I like him because our defense, like I said, is trash. I just think he's going to have a big day. Henry, he owns Sucksonville, plain and simple. They should change the name of that town to King Henryville. And then after that, I just think A.J. Brown's going to hit a huge one. I really do. I think it's 50-plus yards. And if he gets one of them, he probably outdoes Corey Davis. If not, then I like Corey Davis.
So I'm just going to go and I was doing some research here while we were waiting. Back in week 2, we had this matchup. Derrick Henry had 25 carries. 25 carries for 84 yards against owning Jacksonville. He owned Jacksonville for 84 yards and no touchdowns.
Okay, you're going to pick out one game. Let's go back and look at the entire history here, Dingus. Come on.
Hey, history don't mean nothing. You're not playing against the 2018 Titans here.
Don't you Canadian
You're not playing against 2018. These are fact-checking. I'm using the metric system here. Yeah. James Robinson, same matchup against Derrick Henry because, Derrick Henry's the king. He only touched the ball 16. Well, let me phrase that. He only carried the ball 16 times for a measly 102 yards and a touchdown. And then he actually did something Derrick Henry couldn't do, and he actually caught the ball 3 times for another 18 yards. So he literally had 40 more yards than King Henry, who owned Jacksonville in this matchup. Plus, he scored.
You know what? You better be glad this is your show, because if this was mine and Dan's show, you would be getting a dirty, rotten comment right now.
I'd be on mute right now.
Yeah, we'd both probably be on mute right now. I get it. I do. I get it.
I don't know how Dan deals with us half the time. But yeah, we talked about those are all the guys are
I
starting.
don't know how he deals with me, period. It's probably why he's on vacation.
So just touching base here, Jonas Smith, A.J. Brown are both off the injury report. They're both good to go. James Robinson, good to go. He's off the injury report, was limited all week, but there's no concerns there. Laviska Shenault, good to go. Off the report. Mild concern with that thumb injury. Downgrade, may struggle to catch. Just if you're looking at that flex option, Laviska Shenault, he's tough not to put in your lineup, but he may be a guy you may want to wait a week before you put him in there.
Quick one for Calvin right here. If you, Kenan Cole, yes or no? Worth a start here? No. Avoiding him?
I would play Colin Johnson over him. I mean, that's another guy that Colin Johnson. Now, we're not talking about a guy that's going to get double-digit targets, so you're not playing him in that range. But
right.
When you're talking about the guys who are going to be looking at 5, 6, 7, 8 targets, and you're looking for somebody with some upside, that's Colin Johnson's got that. I don't trust Cole. Not anymore.
Gotcha.
Speaking of players you just can't trust, we're going to head over to the Vegas Raiders game against the Indianapolis Colts.
You're right back.
We talked about how important Miami's game was against the Kansas City Chiefs in this playoff race. Both the Colts and the Raiders are right there as well. This is an important game for both these teams, and they present interesting challenges for one another. You've got a team that can't rush the passer in the Raiders against a team who's got a quarterback who's not very mobile, but probably, if not, the best offensive line in the league. On the flip side, I'm not too overly concerned. T.Y. Hilton had a big game here a couple weeks ago. You guys tried to talk me out of not putting him on my lineup. You suckers, I put him in anyway because I don't listen to you half the time. This, for me, is going to be interesting to see how the Raiders' back end can hold up against the – I'm actually glad Hollywood Cooter's back here now because now we can talk about the greatness of Clelin Ferrell.
Oh, my God, no. Oh, I can't. Jesus.
So please put the reverse jinx on Clelin Ferrell again this week because against Indianapolis, the Raiders need that.
The reverse jinx. Really?
The reverse
he's had one good game in the last 20. Come on. Really?
And,
really?
Really, you're only as good as your last game. You're really only as good as your last snap, right? That's the reality of the situation. Now, I'm not condoning starting Clelin Ferrell. Do not do it unless you're absolutely desperate.
You're a huge Raiders fan. See, you done poked the damn bear right here. We've went over this. Me and you, numerous shows. We've talked about this. Really, can you trust Ferrell right now?
Can I trust him? Absolutely not. I cannot trust Ferrell right now. I can't trust him as much as I can trust the Bosa brothers.
Before last week, he had what did I say? Before last week, he had 1 sack, I believe, maybe 2 in his last 17, 18 games. He breaks out last week. Hallelujah. You finally did what you, as a number 4 pick, you did what you were supposed to do. I get it. But I'm not jumping all over that bandwagon just because you finally, for one game, did what you were supposed to do. You string me 2, 3, 4, 5 games together, I'll get back on that bandwagon. Until then, piss off. I don't want nothing to do with you.
I'm going to stay on the bandwagon because I think I have to, as a fan, and pray and hope that this was not a one-of type thing. Like, you're right. This is I think maybe his second or third game since being drafted where he's giving you that hope. Statistically, we can't speak about the other little things that he's doing here and there. Justin Houston had a big week last week on the Colts side of things. Darius Leonard, you're always going to fire him up. Nicholas Morrow, you're firing up as a Raider because you know you're going to have a heavy dose of Naheem Hines and Jonathan Taylor, who I'm actually going to say I prefer Hines over Taylor this week. And in PPR, Hines is the RB12 overall, I think, or right in that range. I will take both of them. I think you can start, but I think Hines has the more upside over Taylor. Calvin, what do you got?
Ooh.
Man after my own heart with that. So I was just looking up Jeff's notes on Josh Jacobs. It does say he is expected to play. Now, he's been really tough. So if he's expected to play and he's going to be in there, I would expect him to get a full workload. Obviously, you're taking you're taking Booker out of your lineups. He didn't do very much for you last week anyway. So, I think you're looking at him and this Colts defense, who, again, when you're looking at your year-long, where do they rank? They look like they're a tough defense, but they have not been that same tough defense over the course of the last 6 weeks. So against running back,
I'm going to jump in on here real quick. A lot of those bad weeks against the running back position were because DeForest Buckner was out. DeForest Buckner's injury. And if we go back through Jeff's notes, who is a better doctor than anyone you're going to find on Sleeper, you'll see that DeForest Buckner could get ruled out. Did not participate Friday because of his hip. If you're a Raiders fan, if you're looking at this matchup right now, DeForest Buckner is the key. If DeForest Buckner's out and Josh Jacobs is in, you're firing Josh Jacobs up. If DeForest Buckner is in that lineup, I'm fading Jacobs hard. Now,
really?
Ahead, yep. DeForest Buckner, he's a difference maker for me.
No, I get you with DeForest Buckner, but if Jacobs plays, if he's a full go,
you're starting him. And I don't think there's a chance that even if Buckner plays, that you're getting the capital letters DeForest Buckner that was so effective in the first part of the year anyway. Now, maybe he does turn back into that guy, but it's hard to see him playing a full workload. It's hard to see him being quite the same guy when he didn't practice on Friday. That's the main thing that gives me hesitation on that. So I'm starting him with confidence. And like you said, a lot of that is without him, and they've been the 25th worst defense, 25th best defense, I guess you would say. One of the worst defenses against the running backs, giving up fantasy points to them over the last 6 weeks. So I trust that. I think you could see a really good game from Derek Carr. I know he let us down against the Falcons, but then he came back and played pretty well against the Jets. This is a better defense than the Jets, obviously, but Darren Waller, again, expect him to get a ton of targets. I think he's going to get 12, 14, 15 targets in this game. Expect him to be utilized all over the field. Lots of Waller, lots of Jacobs. On the flip side, I kind of think that JT has turned the corner a little bit. And while I am a big Nyheim Hines guy, lots of interviews this week that they were, talking about how much they love Nyheim Hines. And when you watch him, especially operating out of the backfield, man, he is tough to cover. He's one of those guys that is a difficult matchup. It's hard for a linebacker to match up on him at all. And they love him. So, and then, yes, Sean brings up the biggest question that I was just about to say. You got a touchdown back-to-back weeks now for T.Y. Hilton. So I want to ask Matt this. Who's guarding T.Y. Hilton this week? And what are your expectations on can he continue to turn back the clock and keep things going, keep his touchdown streak alive against your Raiders?
I think if Trayvon Mullen or Damon Arnett are playing and are healthy, I think both of them can play and stay with T.Y. Hilton. It's going to be fun. The fun matchup for me is I want to see Damon Arnett because he's a bit of a dog, and Michael Pittman, who's a beast, go at it. Mm-hmm. That is going to be fun. Mullen has probably more length to give Pittman more of a challenge. T.Y. Hilton is not the T.Y. Hilton of 3 years ago. He was playing against basically Vernon Hargraves and God only knows who Texans had as their other corner after Roby got suspended and all this other stuff there in Houston. The secondary for the Texans was beat up. Now, I'm not saying that the Raiders secondary is world beaters by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but I'm definitely not expecting T.Y. Hilton to go off. I'd be more concerned about Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman's the better play over T.Y. Hilton in this matchup this week.
We don't have Jeff, but we have Sean, who says that he thinks Arnett is out.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that I'm looking at the notes, and Jeff ain't going to put no injury notes very often in our for IDP side.
Right.
We don't pay him enough for that. Anyway, before we go into our next matchup, we had this other question came in from K Prescott 12, Deontay Johnson or Chris Godwin. That sounds like a bit of a humble brag. Hollywood, who do you got?
Deontay Johnson, Chris Godwin.
Full PPR.
Full PPR. I think I kind of go Deontay because I think Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Tony Gonzalez, even some Ronald Jones. I think there's just too many mouths to feed down in Tampa. And that's a good thing for Tom Brady in that offense. So I like Deontay. I like Juju, but I like Deontay. And I think Claypool's the guy you want to own from Pittsburgh. But to answer your question, Deontay.
Calvin?
Yeah, I was just going to look up and see. Deontay is on quite a streak right now. He is he's up in the first quarter of a few games, which has really slowed him down. But he's still over 100 targets already. Just even in missing large portions of those games, even had one game where he didn't play. So he's just been racking up targets, double-digit targets in every game that he started and finished. So it's just really hard for me to go away from him. Now, a lot of those are short, they're crossers, things like that. But I think this is the week you're going to see a lot of what Deontay Johnson is made of. There's been a lot of talk in the media about him dropping passes. It got more coverage this week probably than ever. You get that loss. And so, yeah, his drops, they're out there. And we're going to see what he's made of, because is that something that he can find a way to limit, put a lid on? And, I think an interesting question. So I'm starting him over Godwin this week, and I think both could have a really good game. Here's my question. Next season, who do you think has a higher ADP in dynasty startup leagues, Deontay Johnson or Chris Godwin?
I think Chris Godwin still has the higher
Godwin.
ADP. Chris Godwin's the better dynasty player. I think Deontay Johnson's the play this week.
I think Claypool kills Deontay Johnson. Claypool is killing his value for everyone. And I was kind of high on Deontay, really was, even with Juju. But with what Claypool is doing, I think he fits so much better in that offense with Big Ben and that receiving core, what they want to do. I've dropped Deontay a lot. Godwin, I still like him, even though there's so many mouths to feed in Tampa. The potential's there, and Brady can just – it's almost the same thing that was in New England in a way. You never – at least for me, I kind of get the feeling you never know who's going to go off. Is it going to be Gronk? Is it going to be Evans? Is it going to be Ronald Jones? Is it going to be Antonio Brown? Is it going to be Godwin? Yeah, I just kind of get the feeling that's what Brady excels in, is having so many weapons. My question to you, now that I'm thinking, because both Brady and Roethlisberger, they're not getting any younger. They're on the backside of their careers. Who would you rather have? Oh, let me put it this way. If they both retired at the end of the season, Big Ben and Brady, and we know they're not, well, we think they're not, who would you rather have going forward? Would you rather have Deontay Johnson or Chris Godwin?
So I'll just go. I think for me, it's still Deontay Johnson, because Deontay Johnson still had a pretty good year last year, even with Mason Rudolph and some guy named Duck throwing him the ball. And I think, I hear what you're saying on Claypool, but they're very, very, very different type of wide receivers. And
they are.
Whereas Deontay Johnson, he has consistently been above 80% of all snaps. Claypool has not been in the game as much. In fact, he had a season low of 43%. Well, not season low, since week 2, 43% of the snaps last week. So in a game where they threw the ball 50-something times, he really didn't see the field as much. And part of that is, I think, Big Ben. I think, he's not really stretching the field, and that's kind of the wide receiver that Claypool is. I don't know if some of that is just maybe there's an injury that we don't know about or something like that, but everything's underneath. Everything's going to those crossing routes. Deontay is over the middle a lot. And I do think that contributes to his drops. I think he is running a lot of crossers, and, he might be thinking about taking those hits, which is understandable. But I think Deontay Johnson is a special wide receiver. And I there's a chance that he is in that same range with Godwin in terms of drafts for me next year.
They're pretty close, right?
Wow,
They're really close. Johnson and
no.
Godwin are close.
I think so.
I still got Godwin considerably ahead of Johnson. But one thing we can't argue is Terry McLaurin's better than both of them. That is factual.
Yes,
that's evidential. That is everything. So we're talking Washington.
Don't even
We're
put
talking
those two
San
in his
Francisco.
category.
Exactly. We're talking Washington, San Francisco here this week. That was my way of kind of segueing on to the next matchup. Antonio Gibson is out, and there's a very strong possibility that he's not playing until week 16, 17, maybe the playoffs with that turf toe injury. On the opposite side there, J.D. McKissick, he's a fire-up kind of guy to go, especially in PPR. Don't discount Peyton Barber in this matchup and what kind of impact he may have on the goal line. On the flip side, Deebo Samuel's foot, he's good to go. He's off the injury report. So you're going to have Samuel. You're going to have Jordan Reed, I guess, technically. You're going to have Brandon Ayuk. You're going to have some offensive weapons for the 49ers. Calvin, who are you starting here?
Well, you mentioned Terry McLaurin. I think this is a big bounce back game for him. You know, if we can call what happened to him last week a slump, then this will be a slump buster for him. But I think it's just one of those things where you have to remember that guys, sometimes they face defenders and defensive coordinators who scheme to take them away. And that's exactly what happened with Pittsburgh last week. They took him away. They had to go to the Steve Sims and Cam Sims and J.D. McKissick of the world. But I think this is a bounce back game. I don't think that San Francisco is going to be able to do near as good a job on him as Pittsburgh did. They spent all that time last week talking about how the defensive coordinator for San Fran was going to be a head coach. And then Josh Allen and the Bills just destroyed him. I don't know if a guy can lose a coaching job on a Monday night game against the Bills, but I kind of feel like he might have. And he might do it again this week against Alex Smith, coming home to San Fran. Now it's not San Fran. It's in Arizona. I wish it was actually in San Francisco, but it's against his old team, the team that gave up on him. So I think you're going to see that. And
he said the R words. I love that.
They're going to – they could. I think the 49ers, man, such a great story, but injuries, I think, just caught up to them. I think you reach a certain point where it's a feel-good story, right. And then it's just hard when you have that many guys on IR that they have and things like that. So, yeah, there's not a lot of people – look what happened. Pittsburgh. Look what that defense did to Pittsburgh last week. I don't think Nick Mullins and San Francisco stands a better chance against that Washington defense than Pittsburgh did.
I'm telling you, that front four for Washington, man. And I'll even go even more than that. It's that front six. You got Chase Young, Sweat as the ends. You got Payne and Allen inside. That's your basic front four. But you got Ryan Kerrigan, Matt Ioannidis. That's two right there. That's why I say that front six. Man, they are lethal. They don't let up. There's no give. And I had a lot of Washington questions. I think you start any two of those, Payne, Allen, Young, Sweat. You got to start if you have any of them, you're starting them. I don't care if you have to double up on them. You're starting two of the four. You got to do that. And I'm with you. That they just don't give up. I don't know that San Francisco can handle them. And then on the back end, you got Curl. Such a shame that we don't have Landon Collins because I think he would have had a great year if he hadn't got hurt. But Mostert, what are you thinking about Mostert, Calvin? I mean, even with that front four, front six, as I said, I think he's the one bright spot for them. He's the one big hitter for them in a way. Am I right on that, or are you thinking differently?
Well, I haven't talked for a while, so I'm going to cut off Calvin here real quick.
Nobody cares about you. This is me and Calvin's show.
Listen, Linda. Listen, Linda. Linda, listen. I think Mostert is a good play this week. I think he's going to hit a home run here. I leaned to you. Here's the thing. What we talk about that pressure. We talk about how good that front six is for the Washington R words. What we're not talking about is how gifted and what Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk do special. and that's that jet sweep action. That is that misdirection. That's that stuff that's going to keep the Washington front at home. They're not going to be in that attack mode, because if you're too aggressive against that jet sweep and those quick hitters that Shanahan likes to do with the 49ers, I almost called them the F words.
The F word. Yes. Drop the F word.
Then San Francisco can beat you because of what the skill set is of Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, because they could take advantage of how aggressive that front is for Washington. Go ahead, Calvin.
Well, and I was just going to another thing to add. I mean, I said a lot. I do actually like Brandon Ayuk. He's one of the few 49ers that I would start. I'm not I'm probably not starting Mostert. I mean, I think you had enough weeks if you made it to the playoffs where you got through without using him. So that means you may have a better option. You probably do. I don't like to start him. But here's an interesting tidbit that got dropped this week, which or maybe it's been around. I just didn't realize it. But George Kittle could be back in week 16. So I think that's if he was dropped in redraft league, he was out there, then you need to make sure that he's not on any waiver wires in redraft leagues.
There you go. That's some good information there that you could go with. Speaking of people who get dropped, you probably dropped every single Jets player right now. Denzel Mims is looking like he is out. He's dealing with some family stuff back home. We're going to move along to the New York Jets versus the Seattle Seahawks here, or the Seattle S words, and where we know that we're firing up the Crowder. If Crowder's healthy and playing, you're firing him up. If we know DK, you're firing up. We know Tyler Lockett, you're firing up. You're firing up Chris Carson. Who else are you firing up here, Calvin?
Yeah, I mean,
why do I do this in my head every time I say firing up?
Slump buster of the week right here. This is the Seattle Seahawks offense needs to get back on track. They have not looked like the same team that over the first few weeks they were talking about how, I can't believe Russell Wilson hasn't gotten any MVP votes. And you know what? The way he looks right now, he doesn't deserve any. But playing the Jets, that can get you right. So this can be a get right team for this game for this team. Then obviously that means you're unleashing DK Metcalf. It means you're unleashing Tyler Lockett. You're Chris Carson. I think all those guys could play very well. But here's what I don't understand. So I know that the Jets are, they want to get their number one overall pick. That's a goal for them. But there's got to be some guys with some pride on the team. And I love Frank Gore as much as anybody. Okay. How do you see what Ty Johnson did last week and not continue to give him the ball? That kid is talented. He got over 100 yards against that Raiders team last week. And I don't know how you're rushing to put Frank Gore back in on the road here against Seattle. I mean,
coach is Adam Gase. That's how.
That's why I hate him.
What's with the Frank Gore venom there? Come on, man.
No, I love Frank Gore. Man,
Frank Gore's the Ric Flair of the NFL right now.
Yes. That is.
But Frank Gore is sitting there on the sidelines. He's like, "You want to be the champ? You got to beat the champ." And no one's beat Frank Gore yet. One's beat Frank Gore.
Love that, Dingus. Love it.
On the flip side, we talked. You're right. Ty Johnson looked fantastic last week. You got to give him a little bit more play there going on. I'm trying to think here. On the defensive side, you've got Jamal Adams. You're starting automatically.
Yep.
Bobby Wagner is probably more good. I would hate it. It's going to feel dirty. This is going to say dirty.
I know.
Like linebacker 2 to me, right?
Yeah. I'm with you.
And I don't mean the number 2 overall linebacker. I mean, we're looking at linebacker number 13, 14, 15 in leagues now.
I'm with you. I'm starting Neville Hewitt. I'm starting what's the other guy? Help me with the name, Dingus. Louis Longue?
Yeah, I don't even.
For the Jets?
But
I can't remember. But yes, Longue. I don't know that I don't start both of them over Wagner. Jamal Adams, yes. Wagner.
So, Frank,
It depends on who you have in your roster. I mean, really, yes, Harvey Longue.
Sean's our fact
I'm with
check.
you on Wagner being LB2.
Yeah, and here's this quick hit here. Frank Gore, concussion, questionable, practice in full on Friday.
Sean's also filling in very nicely for Jeff
than a
here.
quick hitter.
He says, I believe Gore is good to go. Yeah, there you go. Who needs Jeff? We got Sean. We got Sean right here.
Well, actually, Jeff
That's
did
right.
leave the notes. I just haven't read them.
It's Jeff's burner account.
Oh, shoot. That was great.
Speaking of concussions, we go from Frank Gore's concussion to DeAndre Swift's concussion with the Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions. We touched on Detroit. We touched on how we're going to fire up DeAndre Swift. He's playing, which looks like he's trending in that direction. We touched on Aaron Jones. You're playing him no matter what. Devontae Adams, you're firing him up. Who else can you get going on in this one? Calvin.
Tanya. Robert Tanya.
Yeah, I just love what Detroit, they came out, they looked sluggish against Chicago to begin with last week, and then they really got things going. And I think Detroit has a chance of not only producing fairly well in this matchup, I actually think Detroit can win this game. I think that having Patricia out of the way, I think they're playing loose. And I think I'm not saying they're better than Green Bay, but divisional matchup, those are always one score game, basically. I mean, that's basically what we're looking at here. Detroit is in a position where, nobody's giving them credit. Nobody's giving them credit. And I think without Patricia, they're going to play for Darrell Bevell and do well.
You know what's funny? Usually,
I hope you're right because Aaron Rodgers blows. I hate that mofo. I do. I hate that freaking. God.
Usually, I'm the one who says stupid shit, and I don't even think I would say that this week. I'm still taking the Packers over the line.
Have you met me, Matt? Have you met me? Between the two of us, who's going to say the more stupid shit? This guy. Just saying.
Yeah, it's close. Knowing both of you, that's a close one.
Easy, Calvin. I don't need no side street driver. Okay, fuck Aaron Rodgers. I hate that motherfucker.
Which one of us?
Sorry,
still let on? Daryl, which one of us does the school teacher still have on their show?
Well, for now it's me, but he's been absent for a few weeks, so that's a coin flip right now.
I would like to operate I'd like to be the moderator of a panel with you two guys on it that was just an ask me anything, and people in the audience can just ask random questions like not fantasy football related. That would be
I'm down. I'm down.
Would be awesome.
Well, we've already talked about the proper. Well, Daryl missed the earlier question about how do you manscape? Do you shave up and vertical or do you go horizontal? We went through that. We talked about that. We talked about making sure the twig and berries are pulled up when you're doing it proper. Never go horizontal. We share this kind of information. This is the hard-hitting factual evidence that we give on the show.
Hey, what I do with my berries is my business, okay?
Well, you're the only one doing anything with your berries right now.
It's vertical, by the way, because horizontal is that's just a mess waiting to happen.
That's exactly how we brought up there. Like, we both are in agreement there. Alan Zard, core injury. He's off the injury report, playing limited snaps. His core injury is probably related to horizontal manscaping. Kenny Galladay, hip, he is out. Word is he may start practicing next week, but it's Kenny Galladay.
Who?
Forget about it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift, illness, questionable, expected to play. Solid flex play, but he may be limited in snaps coming off his illness right now. So just a couple things there that Jeff left us. By the way, Marvin Jones, if he's in your lineup, he is probably his connection with Matt Stafford right now. You could probably put Marvin Jones as your wide receiver too, even if he sees a little Jair Alexander this weekend.
Sees a little, he's going to see a whole lot. Jerry Alexander.
He is, and we know Matt Stafford. He's a gunslinger from the old days there. He ain't afraid to try and fit in that ball into those tight windows. So that's going to be a fantastic matchup to watch. Going over to seeing other potential offensive.
And he has a hot mamacita, by the way.
Each their own. Each their own. This,
just saying.
This would have had more mamacita appeal, so to speak, if Julio Jones was playing. We've got Atlanta and we've got the LA Chargers playing in here. We have got Keenan Allen. We've got Calvin Ridley. We've got Hayden Hurst. We've got Hunter Henry, which I recommend never starting ever again. We have got Mike Williams. We've got Austin Eckler. We've got Todd Gurley, who we actually don't mind this week. You've got Justin Herbert. You got Matt Ryan. We got some offensive players. We got Deion Jones on the other side of the ball. We've got Joey Bosa, maybe.
I could see this being a shootout and having some big IDP plays as well. I mean, usually if it's a shootout, you don't see a lot of big IDP opportunities, but I think this is a game that you could see high-scoring offense with some big IDP plays. I really do. What do you guys think?
And just to kind of go one step further with the Julio Jones injury, this is 3 aggravations on that same left hamstring since week 2. This may not be just this week. If you're making that push for the title this year, if you can still trade Julio Jones before tomorrow's game, I would not expect Julio to be in your lineup for week 15 for the semifinals. And even week 16, I don't know if you're going to get Julio Jones that you know and love in your lineup. So if you're making that push, you're in the playoffs, you know you're there, you still have a trade, there's no trade deadline, you can still make a move. Try and move Julio Jones right now to get some sort of piece. Even dare I say it? Even a Robbie Anderson if you're in the move for it right now.
I'm not hating that. I'm not hating that at all. Robbie Anderson is huge for Carolina right now. I'm not hating that.
Robbie Anderson is a legitimately good wide receiver. I mean, I really like what Robbie Anderson is doing there. A guy that I really like in this matchup that we're talking about with the Chargers and the Falcons is I like Russell Gage. So actually, after we got that question earlier, I went and looked at a couple of things, and the Chargers are one of the worst teams in the league right now against wide receiver 2s, and that's the slot that he's going to find himself in with Julio Jones out. So I actually really like Russell Gage as a desperation play, maybe my favorite one. Justin Herbert, man, if there ever was a time, an all-time need for a slump buster, this is it. Go ahead, Matt.
QB overall number 1 this week. If you want bold, I'll give you bold.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Although I'm with you, I don't think he brings Hunter Henry.
Herbert?
I don't think he brings Hunter Henry along for the ride with him in this one. I think the guys that I'm starting are the ones that we kind of already talked about. You're starting Allen. You're starting. I think you have to start Justin Herbert in this game. This is a really good defense for him to be matched up against. You're starting Gage. You're starting Ridley. I agree. You're starting Todd Gurley. We talked about him earlier. That's a guy that I actually have a lot more faith in than most people do. Chargers have not been very good against the run. The Falcons have. Austin Eckler is an interesting question for me if they're going to have success in the air. And I actually, it's funny, Austin Eckler comes back and all of a sudden Justin Herbert doesn't look very good. I wonder if they're going to do some things to kind of move things around and change the offense back to the way it was prior to Eckler. It's one of those, maybe the Patrick Ewing theories where an offense gets better when they lose their best player. But that's really interesting here to see how he looks against this Falcons team that's playing better for Raheem Morris.
Well, one thing I do know is I think what we've seen last week with Justin Herbert was what you call the rookie reality check. You get in there, things are going, you're dominating the league right now, you're throwing 300-yard games, you're throwing 3 touchdowns a game, and then you get a Bill Belichick defense that just punches you right in the mouth. And I'm going to be interested to see how this kid responds in a very favorable matchup. I think he's going to step up. I think he's a big-time quarterback. He steps up and he plays it. Now, speaking of a game that has no quarterbacks in it, we're going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New Orleans Saints game. Hollywood, is there anyone defensively you're willing to risk starting? We talked about this earlier, not trading for linebackers, but sometimes playing the waiver wire game. If you've played the waiver wire game, you found yourself with Alex Singleton this year, who has been a fantastic IDP performer in your linebacking core. Anyone else that you're trusting here? Maybe Demario Davis, maybe a little Cam Jordan. I think Cam Jordan, I think Hendricks, I think Davenport, if he's healthy, with a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts and that offensive line that the Eagles have, they are all going to get themselves some this week. And I think, like I said, Hendricks, I think.
Hendricks.
He's going to get himself some. I think Jalen Hurts, all you poor guys out there that think Jalen Hurts is the answer right now, I'll give you a hint. Carson Wentz had his struggles and had his issues and has his problems, but he is not the biggest problem in the city of brotherly love right now. You have that interchanging door at the wide receiver position that they haven't had anything cohesive all year, and that offensive line has had 12 different looks in 13 weeks. This is a bad look for any quarterback, whether you're a veteran or a rookie getting your first start. We talked about the rookie reality check for Justin Herbert last week. This is a rookie reality check for Jalen Hurts, because on our show on Wednesday, I told you guys I told Calvin, and Calvin, I know you agree with me 100%. If there is a team that is used to seeing Jalen Hurts in practice, it is the New Orleans Saints with Taysom Hill, who they've faced every day in practice for the last 4 or 5 years while Drew Brees was running the show. They know how to handle a Jalen Hurts. They've had one in their back pocket for years already. This is not going to end well for Jalen Hurts. And if he shuts me up, fantastic, good on him. I'm not doing this in my playoffs. Ain't happening.
Nope.
Hollywood?
I'm with you, Coach. I'm with you. I agree with you on everything. I don't know about Davenport because I think Hendrickson's the guy, and he's been everything that New Orleans thought that Davenport would be. So, Jordan and Hendrickson, that's your two. Demario Davis, I like him. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I like him. Quan, I'm not too high on Quan right now. I think the change of scenery kind of hurt him a little bit. And you're probably starting him because he's a high-volume guy. But, if I'm
tackle leagues, you got some options here.
Yeah, exactly.
Onyemata and Rankins here, you got them going. They can fire up that on that underbelly of the Eagles as well this week.
Exactly.
Calvin, you're a resident Saints homer. I will give you the last word on this matchup.
Oh, my God, he's going to love everybody.
No, so what's really weird for me as a Saints homer, I am used to 5,000-yard passer Drew Brees and a defense that can be cut through, like bread and butter or whatever. I don't know. They're terrible. They've been awful. So this year is very different. Actually, right now, they are in the last 6 weeks, number 1 against quarterbacks, number 1 against running backs, number 1 against tight ends, number 11 against wide receivers. And when I say number 1, I mean the least amount of fantasy points given up to those positions. So, yes, congratulations, Jalen Hurts. You got a starting job. This is really not this is not the matchup I would want if I were him. Having said that, I do think, despite them seeing Taysom Hill, I think this is you don't really know what you're getting in terms of what the offense is going to look like if you're scouting tape on the Philadelphia Eagles, because Doug Peterson, they took Jalen Hurts in round 2. I would imagine they've been working up what an offense would look like with Jalen Hurts behind center. I imagine it's not the same as it was with Carson Wentz. So they're going to be pulling a lot of things out that New Orleans has not seen. They couldn't study. They couldn't be prepared for. So I think Jalen Hurts could have a little bit better game than people think. And some of that element of surprise could pay off for them. this is a really good defense. I think they'll make adjustments and things like that. But could he end up with a touchdown or two? I think he might could. And I also think that's going to be matched probably with a couple of turnovers. On the Saints side, and Sean asked us here about Murray or Kamara. I think you're still starting Kamara. I think Latavius Murray got a lot of run the last few weeks, but I think a lot of that had to do with them slowing the game down against some teams that were, were inferior. And I think you're going to see that a little bit here with Philadelphia too. But Kamara was also hurt. Don't forget that he was banged up, had a foot injury, I believe it was. So a couple weeks there after the bye, not doing near as much, did a lot more last week. He was an RB1 last week. I think you're still firing up Kamara. I think you're firing up Taysom Hill. He's had at least 2 touchdowns, or he's had 2 touchdowns in each game. He's been a QB1 in 2 out of his 3 games. The only one that he wasn't was a game where he was literally coached not to blow the game, and he was super conservative. I think this is a game where you're going to start to see some of those things start to pay off, and you'll see where Philadelphia has not been near as good on defense as as certainly they hoped, or as they'll need to be in this game. And I think you'll see lots of Michael Thomas, lots of Kamara, and even I think some Emmanuel Sanders.
Are you still high on Kamara, even with Taysom Hill?
Yeah, and a lot of that is because I think Sean Payton is one of the smartest offensive coordinators, offensive game managers in the league. He's not going to go away from Kamara long term. I think he was hurt. I think you saw a lot of that. I think they were limiting his touches in that way. They're going to get the ball in his hands. They're obviously going to use his receiving ability. I don't think that's a question at all.
Right.
So here's a question for you, and I think
Sean are looking at Pornhub
again. Mm-hmm. Not here. I think Sean makes a good point here. Do you think that halftime we may see some of the starters getting a little bit less action in this matchup? Could we see them start to pull some of their players?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Only because, well, first of all, they believe that Taysom Hill is their quarterback in 2021. So, I mean, they're not going to waste this time. They're getting a chance to have him in there with the starters, get him work. I don't think they're going to waste the time that they have. I also don't think this game is going to be a blowout. And maybe that's because I'm a Saints fan that also still sort of expects the worst. But I just don't think it's going to be the kind of game where they can go completely away from having their starters in there. And I don't think they're motivated at all to put Jameis Winston in there and muddy things up in the least.
Yeah, I guess they wouldn't want to actually put a real quarterback in there and have a quarterback controversy.
The one that he'll beat out, by the way.
Did he really though? Yeah, he did technically, but that's not the point. Speaking of good defenses, you've got a top 10 linebacker in TJ Watt going against a Cole Beasley-led Buffalo Bills team. What do you got in this one here, Calvin?
I just love what the Buffalo Bills are doing right now. They are on. I mean, you take away that Hail Mary from Arizona a couple weeks ago, and I mean, this is the hottest team in the league. You've got an offense that looks absolutely legit. Josh Allen has absolutely come into his own. There was a couple of weird games. They had some COVID stuff that was going on, and there was just some weird middle of the season for them. But he started off the year hot. He's hot again. I know Pittsburgh is good. They're tough.
MVP of the league?
No, I still think it's Pat Mahomes. But look, don't forget, as much as we love Pittsburgh, I mean, you lose Devin Bush. That's not nothing, right? And then you lose their other starting defensive end. So, I mean, like, you've got four elite, what I would say, like, super elite defensive players on that team. They've lost 2 of them. I mean, this is not this isn't quite the same defense we saw at the beginning of the year. And Josh Allen, I'm telling you, I really like him in this matchup. I like what he's been doing with Beasley. I like what Stephon Diggs do. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Ever since they lost to the Titans, they have just been on it.
Yeah.
I think Josh Allen is in the MVP talk still. Now you might have Mahomes ahead of him. You might have Aaron Rodgers ahead of him. You know what, you feel what you want about
ahead of Mahomes.
I think you can say what you want about Aaron Rodgers, but the work he's done there in Green Bay this year has been fantastic. I think you've got 3 legit candidates. And
Frick
right
Aaron
now,
Rodgers, Jesus Christ, you and your bullshit cheese-headed shit. I can't. God.
and I think Ryan Tannehill is a close fourth.
Freaking Aaron Rodgers.
Tannehill.
I hate you. God, I hate you.
And I would have
hate you,
said,
Dingus.
I would have. So there's no injuries to report right now. However, if Deontay Johnson drops another pass, Mike Tomlin may take a hammer in his office and smash Deontay Johnson's hand. I'm like talking about casino style. It's like, it'll be like having him on the table there with his pants
Out in
down.
the corner,
Table. Yeah, someone's going to fire up that table saw, and basically you can either have the money or have your hands. It's going to be one or the other, and he's going to smash his hands like you wouldn't believe. Like, if we had a
dig
video
your own
editor,
damn grave in the cornfield. That's right.
if Deontay Johnson drops another pass, we may see that. Let's be honest. Because Mike Tomlin was not impressed in his presser about this.
And Eric, talking about drop passes, Eric Ebron. How many passes does this fool have to drop?
Yeah.
See, we knew what Eric Ebron was. He was doing this in Detroit. This has been his MO. Ask any Detroit Lions fan about Eric Ebron, and they will tell you he's stone hands, no matter who you talk to. But
you put him in Pittsburgh, and he just continues to do the same thing. I'm like, really? You have nobody else that you can put out there that can catch a damn pass over him? Really?
No, the best part, he was basically Mike Tomlin was doing the press conference subtweet, and you know exactly who he was talking to. He was talking to Deontay Johnson and Eric Ebron, who was like, if y'all can't catch the damn ball, I'll find someone who can catch the damn ball.
Yeah. I want to go back to the injury thing, though, but, I mean, having Robert Spillane being out, that's not nothing. I mean, he's a guy that's filled in for them, and it was good. So now they're on their, third linebacker?
I think Vince Williams might be out. It's Avery Williams.
Yes.
Who's that?
Avery Williamson.
Oh.
He was a good contributor to there with the Jets for a while. He was huge.
This is confusing to me. Maybe, Dingus, you can help me. They trade for him. I know they have Robert Spillane, and he's done okay. But you trade for Avery Williamson, who was doing really good with the Jets, and you relegate him to a backup special teams guy, and it's took an injury to Spillane to get him on the field. Yeah, I'm starting the Avery Williamson any day of the week over Spillane.
It's really hard to discredit Spillane and what he's been doing with the production that he's had since being inserted in the lineup. He's been with the team the whole time. Avery Williamson was an addition for depth, I think, more than anything. A great veteran presence to have for this specific reason.
It's the same thing. He did so good in Tennessee. Then he goes to the Jets, and they kind of put him on the back burner. Then he starts, and he does so good. Then he's traded to Pittsburgh. He's put on the back burner, and now it's his time again. It's like he's one of the more underrated linebackers in the entire freaking league.
Well, you saw him in Tennessee. You knew his time was up. His production was dipping. He looked a step below where he had been in the past. You knew the writing was on the wall there. He goes to the Jets, same thing. Now, is it him needing to learn a new defense with as much experience he has? I don't know. But like I said, Spillane had been there since the get-go. He's been doing well. It's tough to argue about Spillane having a starting spot over Williams with the production that was coming out of it. So
I don't know. I'll take a Williamson every day over Spillane. Fully healthy, 100% Williamson all day.
I'm not 100% certain on that, but
nobody likes what you think. This is
Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton is a great.
This is me and Calvin show. Oh, absolutely.
Mike Hilton, Joe Hayden. I think Joe Hayden
out
last game. Yeah, he got out. So
yeah.
If you're looking for that other guy who's probably playing beside Williamson, it's probably Marcus Allen. He's probably that other interior linebacker next week. That said, we use that term pretty loosely when we talk about it because you're probably really looking at TJ Watt on one side, Alex Highsmith on the other, with Williamson in the middle by himself. But if they go to where they bring a second interior, it's probably Marcus Allen. I don't think
I'm looking for another option if that's the case. If you're, I'm looking somewhere, waiver wire or something. I'm looking for something besides him.
I don't think Ulysses Gilbert's quite ready yet for prime time in Pittsburgh.
No.
And you know me, I love me some Ulysses Gilbert.
Jesus Christ.
I think that's it. We just basically ran through the entire Sunday docket here. We talked Monday Night Football earlier. We had a question, so we just jumped right ahead and did the Monday Nighter.
I just want to say that Calvin is a damn trooper for doing this every single freaking week with you. I don't know how he does it. I've done it one night. I've done it one night, and I'm already freaking haywire.
Well, you know what?
You are a trooper, Calvin.
Every week it's fun because usually there's two smart people in Calvin and Jeff on the show, and then there's me. But when we do our starts and sits these last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of stupid on the show between you and I. So, Calvin, these starts and sits, man, kudos to you because you are outnumbered here right now.
Oh, Jesus, Calvin. Bless your heart, Calvin.
The only week that it's bad is when it's LSU versus Alabama. And, if it's a year that I actually care about LSU, then, no.
Yeah. If you're still on the bandwagon, yeah, it's fantastic. But clearly, you jumped off the bandwagon after.
No, you can't hurt me right now with LSU. It's just it's a it's
speaking of LSU, there's 32 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and it's 34-34. So go Tigers! I hope they take this to overtime and beat the Gators' ass. So yeah, I'm with you.
Well, that'd be fantastic to watch LSU win this one, and then everyone who's on the Gators bandwagon will realize they're not really a top four team.
Because the penis of the United States has to lose.
Who is your top four? Who is your fourth team right now in the college football playoff? Obviously, Alabama's number one. Clemson's in there. Notre Dame's in there. Who is that number 4 spot? Me, personally?
Alabama's in the class all to theirself.
Yeah.
I don't bet against Clemson right now. As an Alabama fan, I've seen Clemson slap us around a little too much for my liking. But here's it. I got Texas
Alabama,
A&M.
Clemson.
I can't give a 5-0 team
a
4th spot.
I'm 100% with you on that. Yeah. I can't give a 5-0 team. I mean, look, maybe if you give Ohio State 3 more games, maybe. But maybe if they somehow find a way to play them against Indiana here, that might be a decent win. The way Indiana's looked.
I'll say this: I would rather have a Cincinnati team over Ohio State. Cincinnati is legit, dude. Their defense is legit. I wish that Division I would adapt what Division II and Division III does, that playoff system. I know they won't. But at least I'd like to see them go to the 8-man team or 8-team league playoff. But, Alabama, Clemson, I think Notre Dame's still in. So I think there's one spot left that everybody's fighting for.
Here's the thing. Here's my biggest pet peeve when it comes all down to this. If you're Ohio State, I don't want to hear you whine about that 6th game and we should be allowed in and we should be automatically in the championship. You know what? BYU and Coastal Carolina both took a matchup on 2 days' notice. Yep. Both their games were canceled. Yep. They're like, you know what? Let's go. BYU, Coastal Carolina, let's do this shit. And they got at it. Coastal Carolina got the dub.
Coastal Carolina, I would take BYU. I would take Cincinnati over Ohio State right now. But absolutely. I'm with you.
Michigan couldn't field a team this week against Ohio State. You know who else had an open schedule? Texas A&M. Let's go. Let's see who the number 4 team is. Let's play this game. Texas A&M, Ohio State. You guys could have had an opportunity to play each other this week. Get at her. And don't tell me you don't have time. Because you knew
I know it's a long shot. I know it's a long shot, but hopefully my Vols will take care of Texas A&M next week.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's a long shot. They might beat them in 2022 because they got a fantastic recruiting they've done here lately.
So let me ask you this question though, and this is a different question. It's not the same question. Is Ohio State one of the 4 best teams in the country?
No.
I think they are. The reason why I don't think they should be in is because they've only played 5 games. You can't give a team with 5 games the chance to play for a championship. I just don't think you can, especially they haven't beaten anybody. But you got Justin Fields there. I mean, like, you don't think that
I agree with you on that, but I don't think they're one of the top 4 best teams in the country. Top 8, yes, absolutely.
If you're asking me if Ohio State has top 4 talent, the answer is yes.
Yes.
If you're asking me if they're a top 4 team, the answer is no. Because you look at their strength of schedule, who they've played, who they've actually beaten. They haven't beaten anybody. You look at Texas A&M, their strength of schedule, and who they've played, who they've lost, who they've beaten. Much different resume going into that one. So for me, Texas A&M and Florida, I would have actually Florida above Ohio State right now. But if Florida loses to LSU, they're out of the picture for me altogether, and that leaves Texas A&M. Actually, you know what? Florida's probably out despite this because no one should be losing or in a game with LSU right now. That's the truth.
No one should.
Well, LSU's up 37-34, so 20 seconds left. So, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And,
baby.
You know, this whole discussion, nobody mentioned Georgia.
Nor should they.
Georgia's better than Ohio State, too.
Yep.
Okay.
Georgia's one of the best teams in the country.
Are you talking resume or like what are you talking? Because yes, they have a top 4 talent. They probably have a top 3 talented program and top 3 best coach. So I mean, like it's just for me, it's the resume that is the reason why I would leave them out, not necessarily because
Georgia's 10 times better than what Florida is. Florida has no defense. We're looking at it right now. LSU has put 37 up on them.
Right.
Georgia has a legit defense, and they don't even have probably their best player in Richard LeCounte right now.
Yeah, so now the other thing that game does is it takes away Texas A&M's best win because right now their best win was against Florida.
True.
So that's a really interesting little subplot to that LSU-Florida game is then because you look at it after that, they beat Vandy, they got shellacked by Alabama. They beat Mississippi State. That's not a good win. They beat Arkansas by 11. That's not a great win. Beat South Carolina. I mean, you don't have much of a resume for them either after this.
Let's not forget, Florida's resorted to throwing shoes at this point in this game. That's
but you got to remember, we got these conference championship games too. Yeah. So Alabama's going to play Florida or Georgia, which means one of those two is going to have 2 losses because Alabama's going to beat their ass.
Yeah.
Then you've got the ACC. You've got Notre Dame and Clemson. If Notre Dame wins and beats Clemson, that's 2 losses. That will hurt Clemson big time, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I still think a 2-loss Clemson team is a top 3 team in the country.
See, I don't. Depending on what happens everywhere else, Clemson could get screwed with 2 losses. Now, if they beat Notre Dame and split the series, then I think you get both Notre Dame and Clemson in. You've got Alabama. That's 3 or 4 teams.
This is an interesting one because Notre Dame's already beat Clemson. They're probably going to play in the title game. Say Clemson wins that. And they're going to be the 2 and the 3 seed in the college playoff. So they're going to have a rubber match in the college playoff to get a shot at likely Alabama.
Right. Yeah.
What does all this college talk add to? All 3 of us are going to be part of the IDP guys, former DFD draft magazine. Oh, sounds like Florida's kicking a field goal here right now. Stay tuned. Watch Hollywood's reaction. All 3 of us will be doing a little magazine.
LSU wins, baby. Go Tigers. Woohoo! Woo!
What this all means is you're going to want to check all of us out here when we get our magazine going with IDP guys here. This once the college draft season is
eliminated, they're done. They're out.
Absolutely, they are. Absolutely, they are. Hollywood's here. Hollywood, give us a quick little rundown of what you're doing here, buddy.
Well, currently I'm watching TV and watching the Gators get their ass beat. So you can follow me on IDP Guys. You can follow me at IDP Nation. You can follow me at Divvy IDP Grind. Ding is tomorrow night, so be ready. Twitter, Reddit, Facebook. I'm everywhere.
That's Hollywood Titan. That's Hollywood Titan, not Hollywood Cooter. You're looking for him on Twitter.
Let me help you out.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to change that. Well, me and Cooter, we had a thing going on, so that's why that happened.
Calvin, what are you working on here lately? Actually, I know it's kind of a rhetorical question, but.
Well, I was going to work on trying to change Hollywood's name here because have you just been carrying that with you on every one of the live streams? That's been your name on all the live streams.
No, it was actually.
Whatever you do, don't type it. Don't type in your Google search. Whatever you do, don't Google search Hollywood Cooter. Okay.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah, probably not. Well, you know what? Go ahead. You might like it.
There might be a Hollywood Cooter Twitter account. Who knows?
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Well, you can find me with my obviously back on the LSU bandwagon here. Here we go. So now I got my LSU jersey in the background. Tyrann Mathieu, number 7, Honey Badger. Let's go. Dynasty Vipers. I mean, obviously, we're doing this. We're having a lot of fun. Sundays, we have a quick, might bleed a little bit into the third quarter, but mostly halftime show. We don't know where the time goes. We feel like we go very fast, and somehow it ends up at like 18 minutes. But we have a lot of fun there. We'll do Wednesdays, and then so many things coming up this off season. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be right here with you. Pay attention, and
Hey, and when you're playing some dice out there, you hit the casino. Make sure you roll them dice, roll them snake eyes. Bob Gilchrist there. You see the little banner behind me? That's courtesy of him. You want to take a closer look? Check out my my banner on Twitter. Check out his banner on Twitter. It's a fantastic looking thing. Bob does fantastic work all together. He's done some great things for us. With the Dynasty Vipers, so you want to make sure you check out him. You can find him as part of the SFB Abbey makers too when they get going here every year with the Scott Fish Bowl. Get Wax campaign looks like we got the date set for next Sunday. I'm really hoping Shane and Manila can get up to Chase's house and wax him, but it sounds like Chase is trying to secure that waxer. I picked up my box and strip. I picked up my box and my strips here. You can still donate. Go over to my pin tweet, hit that PayPal thing, send that money. We're putting that to No Kids Hungry. We're doing a good cause thing there. That's going on here right now. Obviously, Manscape. Go over to manscape.com. Enter ViperCast20. Get 20% off plus free shipping with that code. Make sure you neatly clean up that package for the Christmas holiday so you can give it to that someone special. Head over to ViridianGlobal.com. Go buy some Viper t-shirts. Every time you buy a Viper t-shirt, it's an automatic donation to the No Kid Hungry Get Wax campaign. So you're going to want to do that as well. Part of those proceeds go directly to that. And stay tuned. I got in my head a million monkeys. We're working on a million typewriters. And I came up with a crazy idea, and it's one of those ideas right now that you know is a great idea, but you don't want to mess it up.
I've heard
and that's
this
kind of where I'm at right now.
I can't.
And I think you're going to enjoy this. I think you're going to be proud of this. I think this may be my best work yet, and I really hope that this takes off the way I hope it takes off. It sounds like it's going to be in podcast form on about the 29th of December. That's a Tuesday. So you may want to stay tuned for that announcement coming up. I promise it'll be worth it. And I think it's going to be a great benefit to the fantasy football community. That's all I got to say about that right now. For at Calvin and Hobby, for at Hollywood Titan, I'm Dingus4. And we gone. Thanks for joining us.
Hollywood